Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna start a new series. What if Deku got the quirk of an ancient demon? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
As her world collapsed, Inko Midoriya was left in tears. She suffered serious injuries after being caught in a villain attack while returning from her new position as a nurse at one of the hospitals in the Musudafu suburbs. Hirashi, her boyfriend, texted her to say they should see other people. She was informed that this was because of the surgery they had to do. She would never become a mother. Inko cherished kids. She asked to work in the neonatal and pediatric wards for precisely this reason. Inko had hope, but it would take time to earn that position because the hospital took the safety of those wards very seriously. It may be her only opportunity to be surrounded by so many kind and innocent people. While she was crying, a silky voice spoke to her. "Sweet Inko, your soul is pure and your heart full of love. My name is Amestriel, and I wish for you to help me. I have seen the future and this world needs a hope that will shine like no other, a child. I want you to be its mother. A child born of your light, and empowered by mine. I will not force this on you, but I must ask. Will you help me?" I can't. The doctors say it's impossible," sniffed Inko. The speaker chuckled. "Sweet Inko, I am an angel, miracles are my calling. So what do you say? Will you help me?" With a sniffle, Inko said, "Yes, perform this miracle, and I will love this child till my dying day." She felt the sensation of downy feathers encircling her as she drifted off to sleep. The miracle appeared 9 months later. Izuku Midoriya was a boy with emerald eyes surrounded by gold, but his hair was always green, just like his mother's. He never seemed to frown or cry, and his giggles were like tinkling bells. Only Inko realized how accurate the other nurses' descriptions of him as a little angel, or a cherub, were. Inko persevered and managed to land her ideal job in spite of everything, but her favorite would always be the adorable child who was waiting for her at home. He demonstrated his depths of empathy and compassion over the years. He was always there to greet people with a smile and soft, comforting words. Unless it was to defend someone else, he never engaged in combat. When he turned 5, the doctor declared him to be quirkless, but his mother continued to love him and support his aspirations. He was bullied nearly every day and had a difficult life, but he never gave up until that point. At Jaku Elementary School, the day was typical. Izuku was in his final year before attending Aldera Middle School, and he was 10 years old. As usual, he was made fun of and harassed, but his former best friend Katsuki Bakugo went above and beyond. He advised him to walk into traffic as a favor to them all. Katsuki then battered him until he was barely able to breathe. "Oh my poor cousin, why do you allow them to hurt you, bleed you, make you cry? They are beneath us. Let me help you. Let me set you free. All you need to do is say yes," said Izuku in a voice that left him feeling ashy and gritty after Katsuki left. Izuku sighed. "No, I will not listen to you. I will stay the course. Mom believes in me, and I will be the light this world needs. I will become a hero just like Dad intended. We will SSC, the voice sighed. Izuku heard a snap, and as his body quickly recovered, his pain subsided. The voice trailed off as Izuku started to head home. "I don't enjoy seeing you in pain, cousin. When you're ready, I'll be waiting to free you." Izuku was accustomed to going home by foot. He didn't want to bother his mother with this because she works so hard to pay the bills. Who was he to tell her otherwise if the idea that Katsuki was walking with him made her feel less anxious? Izuku was beaming. "Maybe I'll make some of that minute ramen we have, so Mom doesn't need to cook tonight. That would be nice." Izuku was walking beneath an overpass when he heard a gurgling wet voice say, "A bit small, but I'll make do." Suddenly, Izuku was covered in a slimy, sticky substance that smelled of cruelty, rot, and decay. It tried to push itself down Izuku's throat, and he gagged. The liquid chuckled, "Wow kid. You're a lot more sturdy than I expected. You're a real hero." A second later, Izuku felt wind pressure rip the slime off of him, causing him to choke and gasp as the feeling inside him faded. His vision began to become blurry, and he felt something start to resonate inside him, ready to come to the surface. Then, a new, familiar voice rang out from the sewer before the lid shot into the air, saying, "Have no fear, for I am here." Izuku's idol, All Might, the greatest hero, was in front of him. He was big and strong, and during his first appearance, he personally rescued more than 100 people after a bomb destroyed a city block with several apartment buildings. He embodied all of Izuku's dreams. When he saw that Izuku would be alright, he was ready to jump away as he watched the mountain of a man gather up the splattered remains of the villain while he moaned. As the wind began to whip around the hero, Izuku suddenly leapt forward and wrapped himself around his leg. Despite having never flown before, Izuku discovered that he wasn't as terrified as he believed he should be. A strange feeling of wanting to spread imaginary wings overcame him as he felt the wind in his hair and something inside him felt safe and free. When they landed a short while later, All Might appeared irritated and said, "Now, I understand that meeting a hero is exciting, but what you did could have gotten you seriously hurt. I need to get this villain to the police before he wakes up, since he is notorious for slipping away." Izuku yelled the question that had plagued him for 6 years before he could jump away once more. Izuku sobbed, "All Might, I have to know, can a quirkless kid become a hero? I try my best to help everyone, to smile through the pain like you do, but please, tell me the truth," he pleaded. Murmured, "No, I'm sorry, this job is difficult, and that's with a powerful quirk. Without one, no, you would only end up getting hurt or dying. Please be realistic. Helping people is a noble pursuit, but know your limits." That was the end of it. Whatever had attempted to rise inside Izuku simply cracked, and he just stared. Although it hurt, he felt empty afterward. Izuku kept walking home until he noticed Katsuki in distress. Izuku hurried forward to save his bully and former friend because it seemed that the slime villain was as slippery to hold onto as All Might suggested. Although a few heroes attempted to stop him, Katsuki's quirk caused an explosion that resulted in Izuku releasing Katsuki at the expense of a broken arm and several broken ribs. Backdraft took over and used a fire hose to subdue the villain after Izuku forced him back a step with a pencil, saving the day. After being reprimanded by the heroes for endangering himself and destroying any pride he may have had in saving Katsuki's life, Izuku was finally taken to the hospital. They sent Izuku home a few minutes after the ambulance dropped him off at a hospital he had never heard of before. Izuku heard the doctor scoff, "Fucking quirkless, wasting my time and our resources when people that matter need help," after he told him that his injuries aren't that bad, and that he should just return home. As soon as Izuku got home, he was awaited by the police. Endeavor ended up burning down his apartment building during a battle with a villain who was trying to hide there. While nearly everyone managed to escape, Inko was apprehended while attempting to assist their 90-year-old neighbor in getting away, and failed to leave in time. At that time, when the crack finally broke, Izuku simply turned to leave. "Don't waste your time, he's just some quirkless orphan. He'll be gone soon anyway. Probably make us clean up the mess too. Why do we have to deal with the trash while heroes get the credit?" One officer scoffed when another asked if they should stop him. Izuku sobbed until he heard the voice again as he made his way to the deserted, dark park where he used to play. "I'm sorry cousin, I wanted to protect you from this pain. I wanted to free you so you could save her, but now it's too late." Izuku sighed, "I hate them, all of them. My mom is dead, my hero, that ass is nothing but a liar. I try so hard. Why do they hate me? What did I do wrong? Am I not doing enough?" Izuku felt arms encircle him, but he didn't see anything. He heard a voice say, "You did nothing wrong. You're a beautiful, perfect child. I'm sorry, my poor little cousin. Your mother deserved better. You deserve better. Do not worry though, I will not leave you. As long as you need me, I'll be here for you." Izuku sighed, "Thank you. Do you still want to help me, free me? Is it too late?" The embrace became more intimate. "It's not too late. Say the word, and the deal will be done, but I have to warn you, this will not be painless. Growing up never is." After inhaling, Izuku said, "Do it. Free me. I have nothing left to lose, I say yes." The voice abruptly darkened as it chuckled. Izuku felt a burning sensation throughout his body. A ring of glowing silver appeared over his head, and a pair of glowing golden wings tore free from his back, destroying his shirt, causing pain all over. Before the wind caused it to crack and turn to ash. Blood rolled down his aching forehead. Before striking the ground, the feathers fell and his wings turned pale as they burned away. Izuku screamed as he writhed in agony, his shoes burned away, his fingers and toes started to burn with black fire, his nails grew longer, and a quartet of shimmering white fangs forced their way out of his gums. His sclera burned and appeared to be stained by the blood, turning scarlet as it poured into his eyes. Izuku just kept writhing on the ground for a few minutes while painful spasms tore through him until he lay motionless and silent. In response, the voice said, "Rise, little brother, and tell me your name." "I am Izuku," Izuku declared, his eyes glowing with fire that reflected off of his new black horns. "And what is your duty?" the voice said, with a sly smile on its lips. Izuku grinned, "Thank you, brother. I see it all now. The truth. My work. It begins tomorrow. For tonight, I must rest." He spread his new bat-like wings and flew toward a place where no one would look for him for the night. "This world betrayed and damned me, so I will burn it down, and return it to ash. Thus decrees, the betrayed, the dark hope. I will bring the corrupt the only salvation they deserve, the burning pit." Hell was on its way to take the damned. Izuku flew until he came to a dump by the sea. According to his mother, it had once been a lovely place, but that had been a long time ago. A part of him laughed that he would sleep here, just like the trash people claimed Izuku did, but Izuku was no longer that kid. Izuku used his fire, which he now saw had green flecks in its ebony grandeur, to melt a hole in the side of a trash pillar with a wave of his hand. Glancing around, he discovered a collection of ragged and abandoned tarps and blankets. The sand had changed under the intense heat of his flames, and he dragged them into his new home of melted steel and glass. After finishing that, Izuku wrapped his wings and blankets around himself and started to dream. He saw his mother in his dream. She was still alive and exactly like he remembered her, but she gave him a scared and dejected look. He roared in anger as he felt warm, critical eyes on him. Who was this creature to pass judgment on him? What was their right? Why didn't the bullies, the adults who supported them, or the liars who gave him hope before breaking it want to condemn someone? Now he was free. He would punish the evildoers, the betrayers of his faith, because he was Izuku. Izuku's eyes opened as the sun rose the following morning, and he exhaled deeply while flexing his body and grinning at his sense of strength. He raised his hand in an attempt to concentrate on it, and it changed back into Izuku's hand before changing again. When he looked in a broken, filthy mirror he found among the trash, Izuku tried it again with his entire body and once again found himself in the shape of Izuku, with only his eyes left. He let heat escape through his curly mane as he ran his fingers through it, and soon it was straight and longer. He ripped off a small piece of cord and reattached it to a small tail behind him. Though it wasn't much, it would be sufficient. Izuku moved toward his target by navigating alleyways. On his way, he struck it lucky and discovered a box of abandoned clothing behind one of the shops. He replaced his ruined shirt with a brand new black hoodie that had bleach stains on the back. Izuku was happy to discover that he could call forth and retract his wings without causing any more harm to the hoodie after using a claw to remove the bleached areas. Izuku made the decision to exclude them and, in an effort to further establish his new identity, let his horns grow back and protrude past the boundaries of his new hood. Izuku was pleased to see that the staff parking lot was full when he arrived in Jaku, but there were no indications that students had started to show up. Izuku started working after slipping through a side door that he frequently used to get away from his beatings. He checked each teacher as he went by and quietly melted the locks on each door. Izuku searched each of them for the stench of corruption with some assistance from his brother. With his new eyes, he noticed a slight red glow in their eyes, and it smelled like rot. He reached out to the few gullible teachers and put them to sleep for a minute. He would not hurt the innocent, but it was neither expedient nor sensible. After finishing his task, Izuku gathered the defenseless outside and started the main event. Before long, the building was completely covered in green and black flames, making it impossible to escape through the windows. Across the street, Izuku watched it burn from the roof of a nearby building and stopped it from spreading. He could hear a lovely melody in the last cries of people he thought were beyond saving. After completing his task, Izuku slipped away, but not before he snapped, allowing the heroes to put out the flames and causing them to shrink and change color to a typical reddish-orange. At worst, he knew, they would have to start over from scratch because he already knew there were no survivors inside and the building was beyond repair, but that didn't seem likely considering the tragedy of what had happened. With a sneer, Izuku went back to his makeshift residence to train. Izuku trained in peace for the following month. He discovered his new boundaries and what his body was capable of, such as controlling shadows, dominating flames, and using his strong wings or razor-sharp claws. To put it briefly, he laughed, trained, and played like never before. That was easily fixed when it came to food or money. He only had to hide his new features and stalk the back alleys until a creep was seduced enough to attack. It was astonishing how much money could be made by turning murderers and pedophiles into charcoal, and Izukael could see that he became stronger with each sinful soul burned. His power increased with the corruption of the soul. Izukael decided to move on once the beach was clean and the majority of the scum had been removed from the alleyways. One day, he would go back to Musudafu, but for now, he wanted to travel and experience the nation as Izuku and his mother had always dreamed. It was simply too painful to stay in Musudafu right now. Too many memories of better times spent with the one person who never lost faith in him, too many lingering ghosts. Izukael flew during the night and walked during the day. Japan's rural areas were stunning, and the nighttime stars were mesmerizing. Izukael made it a point to hunt down those who preyed on his people at night and assist others during the day while traveling. That night, he ended up in Shizuoka in this manner. Izukael was up in the prefecture's more rural areas when he noticed a group of masked men brandishing clubs and katanas. Izukael silently followed them and was appalled to learn that they belonged to the Creature Rejection Clan, CRC, a racist and bigoted organization that views heteromorphs as less than human or monsters. Izukael didn't intervene right away, hoping to follow them back to their base so he could eliminate them all at once. Izukael hoped he was mistaken when he witnessed them split up and enter a house, but then he heard a scream. He hurried inside to the sound of struggling and discovered two adults who were beaten but still alive. When he got there, he saw a boy about his age with a bird's head attempting to shield them with his amorphous shadow and a young girl with a severely bleeding beak. Izukael burned the attackers from the inside out, his eyes full of hate, but he soon realized it was too late for the young girl. The girl pleaded through the blood that she didn't want to go, and her older brother Fumikage, who was devastated, begged Izukael to save her, even offering to sell his soul if it did. Then his brother spoke up. "Do as I say. These two need not be separated. The girl's body is beyond saving, but a new vessel could do the job. I will teach you how to make a deal. I can prevent her from passing on, but she will not be as she is now. This body cannot be saved, but if you both agree, I will make it so that you never will be separated again. Do we have a deal?" Izukael said, holding both of their hands tenderly after listening intently. "Yes, we don't care what it takes, just please," exclaimed Fumikage and the girl. Izukael's hands glowed with black flames but did not burn. After the girl's eyes went white, she sagged, becoming motionless and unable to breathe. Fumikage yelled, No, you said you'd save her. Why didn't you save her?" and pounded impotently on Izukael's chest. As Fumikage's shadow changed shape and began to sob, shadowy arms encircled him. "I'm here, Fumi. I feel different, but it's still me. I think I'm your shadow now," he said. Fumikage turned to Izukael and bowed, saying, Thank you. Thank you for saving her. I don't know who you are, but we owe you our lives." Fumikage froze and turned to embrace her, saying, "Yudzuka. Thank the Dark Ones, you're still here." Izukael nodded. "No, you owe me nothing. You are one now, and I'm sorry, Yudzuka, but your old life is over. That girl over there is still dead, and that's the story you need to tell. If people find out about you, and I'm not around, you both may actually die. Please don't waste this chance. Protect each other, and those you can. That's all I ask." "Yes, Master, we will do as you ask. We'll become great heroes and save as many people as we can," they both said, nodding. They both bowed to Izukael once more before he took off, saying, "I wish you luck. Sadly, you're on your own now. Your parents are fine, if a bit concussed, and I think it would be best if I moved on, tonight. I'm not worried about myself, but if people start sniffing around it could put you all in danger." Unfortunately, as he traveled, this started to happen frequently. In addition to saving a girl with silver hair, blue eyes, and pale skin who got lost while hunting ghosts in the mountains, Izukael also saved a dusky green-eyed girl and her mother from a drug den where some people were pursuing her with ill intentions, a girl with vines for hair and her younger brother from a drunk racist who tried to firebomb her orphanage church for taking in homeless heteromorph children, and a brown-haired girl's family business when a friend tried to defraud them out of a deal so he could buy them out and look after the couple's daughter. Izukael did not strike a deal with any of the others, in contrast to Fumikage, but he did persuade the majority to pledge to protect others. Stories of a demon saint who hunted in the dark and preyed on the guilty, no matter who they were or where they hid, were another unintended consequence. Nothing, it was said, could break the demon saint's long shadow. Some dismissed it as a vigilante exploiting a terrifying tale, while others labeled him a villain for murdering the few heroes he came across. Their supporters would not accept any evidence of misconduct, even if it was later discovered. Izukale was homeless for 5 years, but as his fame increased, so did the number of heroes attempting to stop him. Eventually, a new opponent made a fresh offer. Over time, Izuku's frail body was replaced by a new, taller, stronger young man with long green hair that curled slightly at the ends and was usually tied back. He had a toned body from training, walking, and flying every day. Izukale sighed, "I'm on break at the moment. If you're here to fight, I wouldn't suggest it. If you're here to kill me or get revenge, give me 5 minutes and I'll set you straight. Anyone else, respectfully, just go away. I'm not in the mood." He was resting in an abandoned building when he sensed that someone was observing him. Izukale ignored the red eyes that glowed in the darkness because he didn't sense any noteworthy new corruption. "Am I a mouse, a dog, a bear? I'll tell you I'm," a white creature asked as it moved into the light after sliding down a scarf that the red-eyed figure was holding. Izukale grumbled, "Nezu, it's nice to meet you, but I still don't care." "Well, you're no fun. Anyway, I wanted to invite you to come attend UA this upcoming semester." Nezu pouted and put his paws together before congratulating him. Izukale breathed a sigh of relief and, "Why would I want to do that? I'm doing perfectly fine on my own, so far, and you don't have the first clue who I am. Why would I give up the lifestyle I enjoy and subject myself to your rules?" Nezu raised his paws and said, "That is inaccurate, Midoriya-san. I've been following your case for a few years now. Also, we both know this crusade is reaching its end. You've avoided killing anyone. Clean, yet as best I can tell, an impressive feat in itself, but for how much longer? The top 10 will start taking notice soon, and we both know you can't stand up to Endeavor or All Might." Izukale frowned and his eyes widened. "Do not speak of those fakes in my presence, Rat King. The time grows near where I will feel their souls burn for the sins they have committed. Mark my words, I will purge those two just like any other corrupt fake hero." "And what makes you think they are corrupt?" seemed to take Nezu by surprise. Izukale chuckled, "Your research is failing you, Principal. Endeavor is a glorified murderer, my mother amongst the list, and, the symbol of peace is the most corrupt being I've ever met. He stands as a golden god, giving hope to the masses. What a joke. He's an arrogant blowhard who causes more issues than he fixes. He fills children with hope while propping up a broken system that exploits the weak and breaks those hopes more often than not. I have plotted his demise for 5 years, and soon, Izuku Midoriya's ghost will finally get his justice. I am Izukale, the demon saint. I purge the world of corruption and protect the innocent. You have nothing to offer me." Nezu breathed a sigh of relief and pulled out, "I am in possession of the last will and testament of one Inko Midoriya, along with the contents of her safe deposit box. So, I offer you a deal. Agree to come with us, and give UA a chance, and both are all yours." "Fine, but if you're lying or trying to trick me, I'll make your school my new home, my way, and purge you and everyone connected to this little scheme," Izukale said, scowling at the mammal in front of him and growling before holding out a hand covered in black flames. With a smile, Nezu shook Izukale's hand and said, "Understood." Nezu insisted that they use his car, so the journey to UA was sluggish. Eraserhead, the grumpy red-eyed hero, is currently serving as both his driver and chaperone. Since Nezu, also known as the hero Rat King, was not a very good fighter and because of his remarkable intelligence, many people wanted to kill or capture him, he rarely left his school. They drove in silence for a while, but Nezu was unable to resist for very long. Nezu looked at Izukale and said, "I must know. How do you determine who's corrupt? I haven't found any evidence of electronic tracking or the normal avenues of investigation, so how do you know?" Nezu's question had been bothering him. Izukale breathed a sigh of relief and, "Corruption stains the soul, and if I focus, I can see it. I don't need to investigate anymore. Over the years I've learned to spot the differences in those stains, like walking into a bakery and immediately knowing what's in the oven, but in this case it's different kinds of rot. I have to be able to see them with my own eyes, but, not once have I been wrong. I can also see it on beings who have been abused. The stains are different, but it's these beings I have the most sympathy for. Like Izuku, they deserve better than they've received." Scoffing, Eraserhead said, "Sounds like a bunch of bull to me." Izukale laughed, "I suppose it would to you. You don't trust Easy, comes with being an orphan, and with your quirk, the other children were cruel. Being basically quirkless to some, and a freak who robs others of what makes them special to most, but it's true. It's why I ignore the stain on your soul. I thought it was murder at first, but it's not. Someone close to you, someone you loved, they died in front of you, and you blame yourself. It's the gray area in my abilities. You've convinced yourself it was your fault, and it caused the stain, but you were innocent. It took time to fully decipher, but you should forgive yourself before it consumes you and you fall yourself. What do you mean, fall? Nezu asked, raising a paw. Izuku looked away. The two most common types of people who become corrupt are those born broken and without the will to fix themselves. And the abused. When someone gets beat on and degraded enough, they can snap. They attack their abuser in desperation or lash out, and they taste the power that comes with it, and get drunk on it. They fall to their own corruption and can no longer be saved. They are the ones I hunt. To be honest, I expected you to be amongst them, Nezu, but while your soul is chaotic, I don't see you in danger of falling. Unlike Eraser, you have made peace with your trauma. If it weren't the case, I would have refused your offer. I hate being present for the fall, and prefer to clean up after or prevent it. What do you see when you look at me, Izuku? Nezu asked, his posture altering and his eyes narrowing. Izuku exhaled deeply. Firstly, I am not Izuku. Izuku was a quirkless child who was forced to endure the suffocating darkness of the current world, until he drowned in it. I am what was born after. I feed on the darkness, and bring what light I can. I am neither hero, nor villain. I simply punish those undeserving of living in the world that will come. I protect those in need, when I can, and mourn when I cannot. Izuku turned to Nezu and looked him in the eye. To me, you are a freshly washed rag that was used to clean oil. You no longer reek of oil, but you will never be truly clean again either. I can almost hear the screams of the ghosts that haunt you, your brothers, your mother, the ones who died when you escaped. I know the truth. The reason you don't fight isn't because of any weakness, it's because you don't want to see the light leave any more eyes. They rode in silence for a while again, with Izuku even managing to rest his eyes for a brief moment, knowing that the two with him wouldn't dare take advantage of the situation. Nezu shuddered and then exhaled deeply, saying, I see. That is, a very unique quirk. Izuku opened his eyes and let out a sigh as the car came to a stop. Come on, kid, it's only a mall. Since you don't really have anything, I thought it would be a sign of good faith to allow you to pick out a new wardrobe and some furniture for the dorms. Nezu seemed amused by that response. Izuku murmured, bold of you to assume I'll be sticking around, but since it's on your dime, let's just get this over with. They began to wander, figuring that furniture would be the easiest place to start. Finding a sturdy desk and a coal-black dresser wasn't too difficult. Izuku selected autumnal hues for his bedding, including burnt orange pillows, red sheets, and a black fitted sheet. Next on the list were two heavy red curtains. Izuku slipped away while they were on their way to a clothes store and was discovered looking hungrily at several rings and other jewelry at a small pawn shop. Izuku closed his eyes and moved his hand around as if he was feeling for something while the adults watched. He then pointed out two rings and a pendant that resembled a downturned sword. The clerk turned pale and practically begged Izuku to take them off his hands for a few thousand yen after Izuku whispered something in his ear. Izuku grinned and put on his new accessories as he left. As they moved, Nezu was able to get a better look and saw that one was a sterling silver skull with amethyst gems in its eye sockets, while the other was a curling black serpent with ruby red eyes. None of them appeared cheap, but Nezu wasn't an expert, so that begs the question, what did Izuku tell him to cause the clerk to become so alarmed? In terms of attire, Izuku selected numerous t-shirts, hoodies, and cozy slacks in shades of red, black, and dark green. There was a brief disagreement regarding Izuku's need for shoes, but he steadfastly declined and refused to budge. Izuku also picked up a pair of fingerless gloves before they left, but they decided to eat lunch at the food court as a result. The three of them sat and ate in the bustling food court, which was crowded with parents and teenagers. Izuku appeared to calm down a little as they went along, closing his eyes and grinning slightly. He felt the other person's gaze and said, I enjoy places like this. I can hear laughter, and feel the love all around. It brings me peace and reminds me why I do what I do. I don't have many memories left of my mother smiling, but I cherish every one of them. Izuku's right hand started to move absent-mindedly, and a single clawed finger moved across the tabletop, creating subtle symbols and grooves. Nezu shook his head at Aizawa's attempt to stop him. He could tell that the teenager was in some sort of pleasurable trance and wasn't even conscious of what he was doing. When Izuku appeared to be finished, he stopped and placed his hand over the center of his work, which briefly glowed red before completely disappearing as if the marks had never been made. Then they stood up and began to walk away. Izuku was taken aback by how well it had worked out, but he would never tell either of the adults. So what's with the new jewelry? Not that I'm judging, but it seemed a bit random for you, Nezu said, tilting his head as they resumed their journey. Nezu shook his head, rarely giving such things much thought, but Izuku grinned and said, did you know superstition usually has a sliver of fact? When you look at these trinkets, that's all they are to you, trinkets, but I can see them for what they are. Do you know why it's considered bad luck to remove jewelry from the deceased? Especially if they died with them on. Izuku raised his hand to demonstrate his earrings. So, you're aware certain crystals can be used as transistors or natural energy conduits, and metals can do much the same for electronics. Heck, copper is a regular component in a lot of stuff like that, but that's not all they can do. Living beings have an electric charge and energy all their own, and sometimes, some of that energy can become trapped in jewelry. A bit of the old owner lingering within. I warned the shop owner of what these were and where they came from, and he was happy to be rid of them. I find things like this from time to time. If they wish to return to rest, I return them to the earth, but if not, they're powerful conduits for energy like mine. I'd be dumb not to take advantage of the opportunity. And the pendant? Nezu asked, nodding. Angelic silver. I have no idea how it got there, but I wasn't leaving it there to attract any of the feathered bastards, Izuku said with a frown and a low hiss. Aren't angels the good guys though? Aizawa questioned, referring to the venom that surprised both adults. Darkly chuckled, they'd like you to think that, wouldn't they? No, there are no good guys or bad guys. Everyone thinks just because you can't lie, everything you say must be true, but it's not. Leading words, double meanings, vague details, and a dozen more things can make a statement quote-unquote true. After all, I could say the grass was blue, and not be lying thanks to paint or the genre of music being a thing. I never trust anyone, but I'll always trust a demon over an angel. At least with a demon you know they're trying to screw you somehow, and aren't trying to hide it. Nothing is scarier than a completely honest man, because you'll never know when they'll stop being honest. Are you sure you're not just biased, demon saint? Sneered Aizawa. With his eyes closed, Izuku nodded and said, I know better than anyone, I was one. Izuku stubbornly ignored Nezu and Aizawa's attempts to get him to explain during the remainder of the trip. Rather, he simply closed his eyes and allowed his thoughts to wander. When the car came to a stop, Izuku got out and took off into the night, even though it was already very late when they entered Yue's grounds. Izuku was too fast for Aizawa to stop him, and he vanished like a shadow. However, Nezu wasn't overly concerned. He wasn't attempting to flee based on the direction he flew in. At night, Izuku loved the campus. The unpowered mock cities had plenty of peaceful spots to find tranquility under the stars, and considering their size, light pollution was minimal. For the first time in a long time, Izuku had a good night's sleep. After all, Nezu was a cunning person who didn't easily betray trust, and no one was foolish enough to attack Yue. Izuku stretched his wings and took off for the campus's biggest structure the following morning, assuming it was the main one. Narrowing down to the appropriate window was easy once there. Nezu discovered a winged demon perched on his balcony railing when he rose from his desk to survey his domain. That morning, Izuku wasn't hiding much because his fangs, claws, and horns were all visible, and he let his wings remain ready to spread out and glide at any time. Nezu's instincts were screaming to flee like a mouse before a hawk, but he resisted them all even though he knew the teen wouldn't attack without warning. Smiling, he said, "Good morning, Izuku. Would you like some morning tea? I also have some cheese and sausages if you're hungry," instead of opening the door. "Thank you, sir. Some herbal tea would be nice, if you have it. As for food, I wouldn't want to steal your breakfast. When we're done, I'll head over to a cafe and grab something," Izuku said, stepping down as his demon features appeared to disperse like smoke. "I don't remember requesting you to come by, not that you're not welcome to visit of course, but may I ask why you decided to stop by?" Nezu said, nodding as she poured an additional cup of tea. Izuku sat down on Nezu's couch, sipped some tea, and remained silent for a while. He finally said, "I suppose you have tests, questions, and hoops I must jump through before you release my mother's things to me, so I came to get started." The longer I linger, the more danger you are all in. I do, but I intended to give you a few days to acclimate. I see that was wishful thinking. I suppose we should begin then. Nezu put down her teacup and took a deep breath. Nezu then reached into his desk and pulled out a stack of tests. Nezu was thrilled to begin grading the first test after being taken aback by the teenager's efficiency after the first half hour. Even though Izukail was a little rough around the edges, it became evident that the intelligence test was completely pointless because of how brilliant he was. After 2 more hours, Izukail was simply lying on Nezu's couch as the Chimera completed marking the tests. Izukail asked a question that made Nezu stop and think. Does it ever bother you that there is nobody like you? I know that a fundamental cornerstone of psychology is social interaction among peers, but for you and I, we don't have any. You because of what you are, and me because the closest thing I have to an equal is a bunch of assholes I'd rather tear limb from limb than talk to. I was just wondering about your perspective. Nezu pondered the issue for a moment before sigh. I like all creatures crave companionship, but no, it doesn't bother me. The process, the torture required to create me is not something I wish to ever occur again. As intriguing as finding another like myself would be, it isn't worth it. I made it a point to destroy every document, file, and record of my birth for a reason. Finding another would mean I failed or was bested in that endeavor, and I must admit, I am a sore loser. It is a failing of mine, but it happens so rarely it is difficult to overcome. I suppose in that regard, we are the same. 2 figures birthed by pain, perhaps we are more similar than I assumed. Nezu was taken aback when he heard Izukail chuckle and smirk later. Now that you've tried to pick my brain, I would guess a physical exam is in order. How do you intend to proceed? Nezu asked. Nezu smiled and nodded. That will be quite simple. Recovery Girl will give you a physical, if that's all right, and then we'll have you take the practical exam under a fake name. In your case, the practical won't determine whether you are admitted, but instead would serve as a benchmark for your abilities in a controlled environment. A way to test yourself, and should you stay, it would give us the data to best place you while determining your rank among the first years. I suppose that is agreeable. I will take my leave now. I have taken up enough of your time, and I hear that there is a coffee shop just beyond the grounds that carries green tea mochi and a few western pastries that I would like to try. The teen demon paused just before leaving and said, "Thank you for humoring my question. I look forward to more conversations like this one in the future, Adam." Izukail disappeared before Nezu could reply, whispering, "You are a curious one indeed, young man. I wonder just how much you know, and how much you only think you know. I haven't been called that since those sadists killed my mother and siblings, long before you were even born." Izukail found another open balcony and went inside after gathering a change of clothes. The teenager scoffed at the foolishness of leaving such a way open when no one was home, but he quickly forgot about it. Rather, Izukail began taking his first shower in a while, enjoying the warm water as it cleaned away old dirt and discovering that the people who lived here had good soap tastes. He was so preoccupied that he failed to hear the resident return or the lock click. As a result, he was a little taken aback to see a pretty woman with dark purple hair sitting on her couch as she watched him leave her bathroom wearing only a towel. The lady laughed. "Now what do we have here? A naughty boy in need of punishment. It makes me wonder, how did you get in here?" Shrugging, Izukail gestured toward the still open balcony and said, "You left the door open. I needed a shower, and you were kind enough to all but invite me in." Izukail went to a shabby bag, picked up his clothes, and went back to the bathroom as if this exchange had never happened. "Okay kid, I tried to be nice, but breaking and entering is a crime. Not to mention doing so to an off-duty hero isn't a great look, so let's try this again." Izukail returned wearing a black cargo pants and a red hoodie without sleeves. The woman was still sitting on her couch, but she appeared slightly more agitated as she spoke with her legs crossed. "My name is Nimari Kayama, or the R-rated hero, Midnight. Now, tell me who you are and I'll consider not arresting you. It's nice to meet you Kayama-san, but I only entered as I said before. I never did any breaking. You will find I am not so easily caught." Izukail grinned and walked toward the still open balcony, saying, "It was not my intention to intrude, so I'll take me leave." He gave the hero a small bow before straightening up and, much to Nomori's dismay, simply falling backwards over the railing. She hurried to the balcony as soon as she was over her shock to check on the teen's survival, but she saw nothing. No indication that anything was amiss, just 6 stories of air. Nomori picked up her phone and dialed Nezu. He had to be aware that there was an intruder on campus, if nothing else. A few hours later, Izuku noticed a group of heroes waiting for him on UA's campus. They appeared serious and agitated. He put one of the bags he was carrying down, decided he was not interested, then spread his wings and took off into the forest. They all sighed in exasperation as they went to inspect the bag the teenager had left behind and discovered 3 to-go boxes with names on top. One was filled with tea cakes for Nezu, another with coffee-flavored cream filling and caffeinated sweet buns for Aizawa, and a box of various fruit-based cheesecakes for Midnight. Midnight accepted the treats as an apology and decided to forget the encounter, while the first 2 realized it was pointless to try to apprehend the teen. Each of the 3 took their box and departed. Throughout the following 3 days, Izuku made appearances and vanished from the campus. Sometimes it's just for conversation or to eat, and other times it's to pull what can only be described as practical jokes, such as switching Aizawa's coffee to decaf, Present Mike's hair gel to wood glue, or using transparent lubricant from the support studio to cover all the door knobs except for Nezu's and Recovery Girl's offices. Izuku simply yawned and shrugged when asked why, saying, boredom. Izuku observed teenagers arriving and making their way inside for their chance to attend this university on the morning of UA's entrance exam. Izuku could see from the shadows of a roof that Izuku would be among them, hopeful and bright-eyed, if things had turned out differently. Beautiful lies about being a hero filled his mind. He wondered how many of these ants had experienced similar delusions. Izuku gave a headshake. These were not the right thoughts at this moment. It was a waste of energy to dwell on them, since he had no control over that. Rather, he returned his attention to his work and kept an eye out for anyone who harbored corruption. Although it was unlikely, Nezu could capture them if he could find them so he could have a closer look. Seeing corruption developing in a child had previously resulted in a much more serious situation. Seldom did rot develop on its own. Most of the time, it had to spread from a bigger source, such as a rejection clan cell or a recruitment site. Izuku found some familiar faces among the crowd, which eased his heart a little. He frowned at a few of them, but they seemed to have kept their pledge to become stronger and strive to become heroes. Worst of all, there were angels around, and he could smell incense and ozone. Fortunately, it appeared that the majority were not awake, as Izuku was, but there was undoubtedly one feathered liar present. Things would be challenging as a result. Izuku was stealthily searching for the haughty pigeon that believed it could enter his territory while others were taking the written exam. Whatever they were using the other prospective students as cover, so it was ultimately a pointless endeavor. Izuku would just need to be ready until it showed itself. The practical explanation was delivered by Kurayami Morningstar, a fictitious name that Nezu had gifted him as a cover, who grumbled. Izuku was a name that would only cause problems if it leaked too soon, and it seemed that Izuku Midoriya had been declared dead years prior. He kept his fangs because he thought they were sufficiently intimidating to deter most people, but his eyes remained unchanged and their red rage could not be concealed. He concealed the remainder. Although he detested concealing his natural green hair, changing it to black wasn't too difficult. Fortunately, he had complete control over his attire, so black joggers and a forest green hoodie worked perfectly. However, he would deliberately burn the shoes he had to wear. If he was telling the truth, they weren't awful, but that was the main idea. He no longer saw the need for them, having walked the entire length of Japan barefoot. The majority of applicants decided to keep their distance from him as the room filled, but not all of them did. The shadow of a young man with a crow's head appeared to come to life on its own when he entered the room, joyfully shaking its host as it pointed. The boy groaned as he went up the stairs, if only to get his shadow to stop talking. However, as they got close enough, the shadow grew longer and hurried Izuku. A few moved aside, certain that the shadow was going to attack, but instead they saw Izuku petting the shadow's head while remaining composed and grinning a little. After being startled, Fumikage heard the teen whisper and the shadow purr, "It's nice to see you again, Yuzuka. I'm glad you remember me, and have done as you promised." He bowed his head and uttered the words, "We have, master. It was not always easy, but we did. I am sorry I did not recognize you sooner." Fumikage abruptly dropped to his knees. After giving Yuzuka one final pat on the head, Izuku reached out and pulled Fumikage to his feet, saying, "I was never your master, Fumikage. Just a stranger who could help. I suppose that makes me a friend, but I have no intent to command anyone, so I could never be anyone's master. Replied, and that is why I intend to serve you however I can." You saved us and asked only that we improve ourselves, and do as you did for others. You are our master because you do not demand anything of us, but our best. Yuzuka bowed her head as well. Why do you look like this though? I can tell it's not what you actually look like, but I can't see what's underneath either. I don't want to scare anyone, and I am well known. For now, call me Morningstar-san or Kurayami, please, Izuka said with a sly smirk as he leaned in. Yuzuka wiggled joyfully and said, whatever you want, Kurayami-nisan. Izuka waved and asked Fumikage to sit next to him, and the bird-headed boy's chest warmed with delight. Fumikage gave his sister a scandalized look, as if she had just committed some major transgression, but Izuka's smile grew. Thank you, little sister. Izuka was once again left to wait in silence while he watched people entering the lecture hall. Beside him, Fumikage said nothing and simply followed Izuka's instructions as best he could because he had no idea what he was doing. A girl with pink skin, pink hair, and crooked yellow horns did not ignore or avoid Izuka and his soul-piercing eyes like most others did. Izuka was torn by the irony of their similarities, even though he only had to glance at her to realize she wasn't a demon like him. With a single glance, the girl grinned broadly and approached him, her black sclera and gold eyes seemingly fixed on him. Hello there, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome. The name's Mina Ishido, and yes, I am the one you've been looking for all your life, she said, winking at him in an obvious attempt to be sexy and welcoming. Izuka laughed and continued, Kurayami Morningstar, and bold of you to assume I'm looking for anyone, much less a bubble-gum-colored succubus like yourself. Beauty is dangerous, so what assurances can you give that an exquisite rose like yourself doesn't have thorns? Or that your honeyed words aren't sweet to hide the poison beneath? His voice was so low-pitched that Mina had to blink and swallow hard. She wanted to know more, but all she knew was that this guy was really skilled at this game. Mina, who was seated across from Izuka, laughed and said, I could ask you the same questions. I guess we'll have to keep a close eye on each other and decide for ourselves. If that's what you want to do, Izuka grinned, shrugging and turning back to the front. After a short while, Present Mike took center stage and performed an explanation of the practical exam. Izuka thought it was a little excessive, but he wasn't concerned enough to mention it. Rather, he listened to the explanation of the 3 types of potential pointed robot villains. Following a brief interruption from a boy with blue hair who needed to unwind, they also talked about the 0-point robot. Izuka wasn't going to worry about it because it seemed easy enough. Furthermore, he didn't need to pass this in order to be admitted. Even though it was just one of Nezu's tests, he was still enjoying himself a little. Izuka had to bid his seatmates farewell after they were instructed to split up and go to their separate testing locations, and Mina appeared taken aback by how quickly and smoothly he simply vanished. Mina turned to confront Tokiyami after hearing him laugh at her, ready to demand an explanation, but the bird-headed boy wasn't even glancing at her. His shadow, with its head resting against his and its arms encircling his shoulders, was even stranger. Something about their position seemed familial and tender, which was strange. Mina simply made the decision to go ahead and take her test. There was no time to try to figure out what was wrong with either of them. She would have years to discover all of their secrets after she died. Izuka pulled up his hood and fixed his gaze on the bus. Perhaps it was safe to do so because he had other ways to see and keep someone from snooping on him. He was disappointed that no one bothered him, though it was not surprising given that most were too preoccupied with relaxing or getting ready for the test. A villain could easily take any one of them by surprise at this point and kill them all before they had even begun to regain consciousness. Izuka merely hoped that these children would either quickly adjust or live long enough to assist others, as none of them yet had the proper mindset for this position. Izuka sighed as they arrived at Site G and the applicants parted ways to warm up or continue to relax. And to make matters worse, the ozone smell was back and stronger than before. This was going to be a long test. There could only be more problems because the angel was near. Present Mike abruptly walked over to the speakers and yelled, "Go!" Izuka was already moving when the test area doors opened. He was somewhat fortunate. After just a few seconds, Izuka discovered a group of 6 robots of different point types hovering in a square. They were probably set up as a trap or ambush, but that only made his job easier. He closed his shadowed fists and slammed them in a X shape across his chest, sending dozens of shadow spikes spearing all the robots from various directions. Izuka grinned and said, "Field of the Impaled." Izukale left the shadows as a warning and carried on his search. The others obviously didn't have the stomach to carry out the necessary actions if something like that upset them. A few employees in the observation room appeared worried. They had heard about a scene discovered a few years prior, and what they had just witnessed was too similar. Every attendee appeared to have been killed without any indication of resistance or an attempt at retaliation, leaving the entire convention hall covered in blood. They couldn't help but think that something like that had also been done in that case. The fact that first responders discovered proof of the attendees' purpose was the only reason many of them didn't sleep poorly over that case. Bins of body parts, pictures and recordings of acts too heinous to explain, and proof of forced incarceration, including chains and cuffs that were too small for children. This had been a front for the black market. Given the ease of online sales, they weren't common, but they did occasionally appear. Usually, heroes and the police were too late to intervene, but not this time. The only thing that was actually lacking was the fact that no living victims were ever discovered. Beside Nezu on the couch in the observation room was a thin, skeletal man who appeared troubled by what he was witnessing. However, Nezu burst out laughing before he could ask any questions, saying, "Oh yes. I knew I made the right choice inviting you, my young friend." The stoat's laughter startled the other people in the room, if they weren't already. Everyone knew that if he was having fun, it was unlikely to end well for everyone because he was a being with a sadistic streak that was as strong as his intelligence. Aizawa grimaced, "So tell us, why bring the demon saint to Yue?" One of them simply huffed, "I still don't see why you brought him here, Nezu. Clearly he is dangerous." The room was shaken by a panicked reveal, but Nezu simply waved him off, illogical. "I am disappointed in you, Shota. If our young friend meant us any harm he would have done so by now. He's been on campus for days, and the worst he's done are minor pranks. I want to see what makes him tick, and mold him into a truly awe-inspiring hero. Just think about it, if he can carve such a wide swath of fear into the underworld as a preteen with no support, what could he be capable of with the resources of Yue at his back and training from the best heroes available today? All might drove villains into the shadows, but I believe it is time we finish the job, and burn away the shadows before they can regain their footing. In the more than 3 years he has been on the field he has maintained a cleaner record than anyone in this room. Not a single innocent harmed. I would be a fool to let such a powerful piece slip through my paws." The skeletal individual looked at Nezu. "You are taking an incredible risk. That villain has a higher kill count than some serial killers. I must go on record to state my disagreement with this decision." Nezu laughed. "Noted Toshinori, but it is an interesting position for you to have, since you yourself had a personal hand in turning an innocent child into the villain you see today. Perhaps you should reserve judgment until after you know all the facts." Muttering, I impossible. I've never seen that child before in my life. I could understand if you wanted to say I had an indirect connection to him. I'll be the first to admit he wouldn't be the first I've unintentionally created, but a direct personal connection, that is both impossible and inconceivable. You'll realize it eventually, but until then, I intend to enjoy the show, Nezu said, simply shaking his head. Izukale was back at test site G, peering down from a rooftop at the other applicants. He didn't see much use in earning more points now that he had 100. He extended his thoughts to his rings and once more exploited his skull ring. He closed his eyes once more and opened them in the shadows throughout the site to see how everyone was doing and possibly locate his newest feathered adversary. For a short while, applicants were shocked to see robots immobilized or slowed down by shadow tendrils, making it easier to defeat them. Others discovered that they were shielded from robot attacks or debris by walls of darkness. Izukale might have reacted too slowly to dodge if it weren't for his shadow sight, but all of the helpful shadows abruptly stopped as he was forced to roll to the side or risk having a shining silver sword stabbed into his back. Finally, Izukale grinned as he had a clear view of him. Shining golden hair that was free to hang in a white hoodie. He wore blue jeans and gold boots, but the pair of pure white wings behind him and the blank white mask adorned with Enochian runes were what truly identified him. Izukale had performed this dance before, but the angel rushed him once more with his sword of pure silver and polished gold. Though it didn't cause any harm, the explosion of heat and flame in the angel's face served as a diversion to cause him to wince and lose sight. He grabbed the sword from his necklace, and it came loose and grew. Initially, the blade resembled that of the angel's, then it twisted and transformed. The gold had vanished, and a pitch-black iron had taken its place. The blade's silver also underwent a transformation, turning into enraged red steel. What was once thought to be radiant and beautiful had turned into a gothic weapon of war. A work of art that is now a shining weapon of war, yet somehow maintaining a sense of beauty in a different way. Taking off his hoodie and standing up straight, Izukael revealed his actual self. At his command, claws, horns, wings, and flame appeared, and everyone except Nezu saw the true demon saint in all his glory, his untamed emerald hair once more swaying in the light wind. He launched an assault after his shoes burned off, exposing clawed feet. As soon as it became clear that Izukael was winning, steel and silver met and started dancing. Izukael was pushed back and struck in the chest by an arc of gold lightning, but the angel, whoever it was still inexperienced and not yet completely capable of fighting. Even as shadows hardened along his arms into bracers, Izukael let his flames take shape down his blade with a dark chuckle. His next attack was even faster, and the teachers wouldn't be able to witness what happened until much later. The angel was knocked off balance by one blow, its sword was forced out of position by another, and the final third was a stab through the chest, but instead of blood, the angel dispersed into a puff of disintegrating white feathers before reappearing behind Izukael and slashing his back, creating a spray of black blood that hissed like acid as it struck the roof. "Be gone, Hellspawn. This place has been deemed worthy of hosting a miracle. Here a chariot shall descend and with their radiance purge your wicked stain from this world." The angel's position shifted to one of mourning, saying, "It is a pity you chose to become this. You could have become a champion of beauty and shining radiance in the world we will create, but you failed. Oh, how your father wept at your loss." Izukael grumbled and scowled, "You are blind, deaf, and dumb to follow those monsters. You have no concept of the evil you are helping unleash on this world. I won't allow it. Even if it kills me, I will tear those deceivers from their golden thrones and make them face a true death. Now come, pigeon, bring your whole fucking flock if you want. Come to me so that I may burn away your deceit and make you face the hellfire. I am Izukael, the demon saint, and none shall harm the innocent while I still draw breath." The angel shifted into a furious stance, lowering both hands to try to strike Izukael with all the golden lightning he had, but Izukael snorted. Izukael used one hand to create an emerald-traced, inky black flame orb that he threw into the beam. Contrary to what most people would think, the smaller orb was not eaten. The orb grew as it rose, eventually obscuring the sun before exploding and sending a smoking form crashing down from the sky. The angel's remaining wings glowed as he fell, obviously severely injured, and he exploded into evaporating feathers again as he crashed into a rooftop. Izukael caught a feather and put it in his mouth before it faded, causing his back wound to quickly heal. The black ichor that was his essence would no longer ooze or bleed, though it would take time to heal completely. Izukael became more vigilant as he tried to figure out whether this was another angelic ploy after the ground started to tremble for a few more seconds, but he eventually calmed down. The 0-point robot was the only one starting its rampage. Izukael flew toward it without bothering to change his disguise, helping any candidates he came across to avoid its approach. Some of the applicants thanked him, while others cursed and tried to attack him. Izukael didn't give either much thought because he still had work to do. He came across a familiar girl with vine hair trying to do much the same along the way. He was certain that he had seen her before, even though she hadn't been the person he had spoken to at the time. After all, it was difficult to forget a true beauty. He saw her divert herself by blocking a rocket that was aimed at some boys with her vines, and she missed the second one as it struck the building above her head. Izukael swooped in, blasted away the debris that would have caused the girl serious injury, and bought her time to evacuate the other applicants. Izukael charged the 0-pointer after deciding that this had continued for long enough and cloaked his sword in black fire once more. The applicants only saw a black star shoot into the chest of the 0 and emerge from the opposite side. It was a spectacular show that was quickly followed by another as the star grew larger before collapsing and burning what was left of the 0's upper frame. As he observed his black meteor in action, Izukael scoffed. Since the attack was designed to destroy entire buildings, it wasn't often that he could execute it, so he found the situation amusing. It felt good to let go occasionally, but most of the time there were just too many innocent people around to use it. Izukael heard Present Mike shout, "Time!" over the speakers as he started to go down, ending the exam. He had temporarily crippled the angel, but he had not killed it. Regardless of its purpose, it would require a minimum of 1 week for him to recuperate, which could be used to track him down and complete the task. Izukale decided to skip the trouble of interacting and flew away rather than land, turning his blade back, though the pendant still had its horrible transformation and now appeared twisted. He received a message from Nezu while lounging on one of Yue's roofs, but he chose to ignore it and unwind for a few more minutes before becoming irritated by the constant buzzing of alerts. Please come to my office, Rat God. We must talk about what just transpired. Izukale, this is serious, Rat God. Are you ignoring me, Rat God? Young man, don't make me harsh. You a demon, be calm. All I needed was a few minutes to recover and relax. If someone sneaks up on me, I'm likely to deep fry them. I'm en route. Despite his complaints, Izukale took off for Nezu's balcony. He completely reverted his hands and feet to remove his claws as he flew, making his horns shrink. He hoped he wouldn't need them. For security purposes, Nezu had given Izukale a key to his balcony after their initial encounter. Nezu's office was the safest location on campus in case of an emergency. Given that only Aizawa was trusted enough to possess the other key, it was intended to convey a strong message that he trusted the young demon to be one of only 2 individuals with a key. Izukale entered with a straight back and square shoulders. He didn't intend to put these people in danger beyond what was absolutely necessary, even though his enemies might want to. You called, so I came. How may I help you, Rat King? Izukale sighed as he sat on what was turning into his couch following their numerous meetings. Aizawa, seated across from him on another couch, frowned and said, "Don't be cheeky, problem child. An assassin just came to kill you," and Nezu grinned at his attempt at a casual tone. Izukale began to chuckle as he interrupted, "Assassin! Exclamation mark. That fledgling. That's hilarious. He only managed to hit me once and that was because of that teleport trick of his. It stung a bit, but I can assure you, a blow like that is incredibly minor. A scraped knee in the grand scale of things. That kid was nothing to me. I would have burned him to ash, but not killing students on campus was one of Nezu's rules. I had a choice so I let him live. For the record though, if a real angel arrives or a capable pigeon, I'm dealing with them and I don't care who they are or where I am." Sitting forward, Nezu said, "You just indicated that there is a difference. Mind explaining?" Izukale sat down on the couch and closed his. "Firstly, there is a huge difference between a true angel and an earthbound angel. This is also true of demons and hellspawn. I am a hellspawn, technically. I call myself a demon because hopefully I'm the closest anyone will get to my elder brothers. Demons are every bit the chaotic monsters they are depicted as, but most have a code. The deal is an uncompromising bond. No demon will break a deal on principle, so if you succeed in outsmarting us we don't get mad. It's so rare to find a worthy opponent, and no, I have no interest in dealing with either of you. You wouldn't like the stakes and I have one outstanding deal, and that was made when no other choice remained. He doesn't understand the risk yet, but I intend to help him any way I can." "Should we be concerned?" Aizawa asked, sitting forward. Izukale made a gesture of 50%. "Worst case scenario, I would be compelled to rip open his chest while he still draws breath and devour his still beating heart, consuming his soul and any soul attached to it. Not pleasant for either of us since he's probably the closest thing I have to a friend." Aizawa exclaimed, "What could possibly be worth that price?" As her eyes widened in horror. Izukale grumbled, "His little sister's life. When I found them, she was beyond help. She was moments from death, so her big brother made a deal with me. My first deal, and I saved her life. She became his shadow, alive and free-willed, but forever bound together, body and soul. Do not judge me, Shota. We both know if I had offered you the deal when it could have saved your beloved, you would have taken it as well without a second thought." Nezu said, "Okay, that gives us a starting point on demons, but it doesn't answer our question." Aizawa remained silent because he was unable to honestly dispute Izukale. Izukale made himself at home. I'll get there. On the other end of the spectrum, or so everyone believes, are true angels. They come in all kinds of shapes and descriptions much like demons, and are just as manipulative. The difference, they have no code. They do whatever they think is best, usually for themselves. They can't lie, but nothing they say is ever completely true. They like to make everyone think they have your best interests in mind, but they don't care. Never have, never will. They don't die usually, something they share with demons, but are banished back to their realm. They can meet a true death, but it's incredibly difficult to do. Like I said before, both are treacherous monsters, but I'll take evil with a code any day." "What's that for?" asked Aizawa as he sat up and used a finger to call forth a figure composed of shadows. Izukale simply ignored him. So, true angels and demons can't just cross over into our realm. They have to be summoned, and the stronger they are, the more energy they require to stay. That is where Hellspawn and Earthbound angels come in. Demons and true angels are nearly immortal, but as a side effect, they can't breed often and are far fewer in number than you'd think. Since they can't enter the world physically on their own, they require agents born in this realm to act on their behalf, or if they can get strong enough, summon them into this realm. On the other hand, they can use their essence to make a temporary connection, just long enough to make a deal and impregnate a foolish or desperate soul. What do the mothers get out of it? Aizawa asked, looking sick, while Nezu appeared thoughtful. He sighed, money, power, control, it can be just about anything. It also doesn't matter which one, fathers, the child or children. Either way you get a seed. They have power locked away inside them, but until it awakens, they are just carriers. Some seeds never sprout and end up being passed from parent to child, growing more powerful with time until the circumstances are met, and they bloom into either a Hellspawn or Earthbound angel. As Aizawa pondered this, Nezu cocked his head and said, "Then your father is?" Izukale hissed, "A seraphim. A being among the highest tier of true angels," as his shadow man's form exploded, revealing a creature with countless feathered wings and eyes. Izukale clenched his hand in mock agony. After blinking, Aizawa said, "Then why are you a Hellspawn?" Izukale requested. "That's the risk. I haven't found irrefutable proof yet, but I think both species are related. Why else would a child of one so easily become the other? Anyway, you asked why I'm a Hellspawn when Daddy was a high-powered angel. That goes back to how I awoke from my seed state. I said before that circumstances had to be right to do so. Well, a power like this requires an extreme need, like a near-death experience or a person's whole life to shatter. In Izuku's case it was the second. Izuku was kind, heroic, and compassionate, like everyone believes a cherub should be. He was a pure beacon of light with a supportive kind word for everyone, but also completely quirkless according to doctors. This led to bullying, scars, and cruelty inflicted on him, but he remained hopeful that someday he would become a hero and help the world. He was deceived. Our father told our mother we were important and would bring about a beautiful purpose to make the world better. I know what that purpose was to be now, and it isn't glorious or beautiful." "And that purpose was?" Nezu asked, looking curious. Izukale grumbled, "A truly powerful being like him requires a powerful sacrifice of both literal power but also blood. I was intended to provide both. I was supposed to accumulate enough power and then explode, tearing a hole between realms large enough for him to step through. He would then sacrifice Earthbound angels periodically to stay while he took over. According to legends passed down by both sides, if a suitably powerful true angel or demon can linger long enough to perform an intricate summoning, they can tear a permanent hole between their realm and ours, and invade us en masse. If that happened, this realm would be lost in less than an hour." Aizawa whispered, "Then this chariot that kid mentioned." As both adults went pale, Izukale replied, "A chariot or throne is in the same general tier as a seraph, but that's about as helpful as saying Wash and All Might are in the same tier because they're both top 10 heroes. Without more information, I have no idea how dangerous this situation actually is, but congratulations, you win. I'm staying, at least until this situation is taken care of. I won't allow even one of those bastards be summoned if I can prevent it. I swore to protect the innocent, and those monsters only bring death." Nezu nodded and said, "In that case, I don't need to keep holding onto this to make you stay." He took a key out of his vest pocket, opened a locked secret drawer in his desk, and took out a long, little box. "This was all that was inside your mother's security box. I've seen what's inside, but I didn't touch or disturb them, and I made sure no one else did either," Nezu said, taking out another key and giving them to Izukale. After inhaling deeply, Izukale opened the box. A single gold feather that appeared strangely large and sharp, a large, pricey golden cross necklace, and a little stack of photos of Izuku and Inko grinning together were all found inside. Izukale appeared to transform as he caressed the photographs. He started crying blood tears, but he was careful not to let any of it tarnish the pictures because this was the first time either adult had seen the demon genuinely depressed and grieving. Izukale wiped his eyes and went on to the cross after they let him do so for a few minutes. Izukale grinned and said, "An iron core. Thank you, Mama. I can hear you. I will continue your work. I will continue to be the son you raised me to be." The two adults gazed in wonder as the gold plating vanished and the shape twisted until an iron pentacle replaced it. Izukale smiled slightly as the chain appeared to vanish as he wrapped it around his wrist. Nezu blinked and said, "That's some impressive sleight of hand you have there." Izukale simply grinned and shrugged. When Izukale finally reached the feather, it sparked a little at his touch, causing the demon's eyes to widen and his smile to turn savage. The teen held it over his maw the next instant, and it just vanished inside. Izukale began to shake and clench his stomach in agony, but that insane, gleefully cruel smile never left his face. They saw Izukale's eyes turn into slits, the lights flickered, and the shadows stretched throughout the room before everything vanished as if it had never happened. Izukale reclined and inhaled deeply with satisfaction. When Aizawa said, "Excuse me, but what the fuck was that?" she simply blinked. Izukale's body exploded when he stretched, much more than is healthy or feasible. He started laughing. "You all have quirks, and so do we, in a way. That angel earlier could perform a short-distance teleport, but my power is different. I call mine karmic cannibalism, and it acts as an extension of our normal way to get stronger, devouring the corruption of our victims. Normally our lost pieces evaporate without a constant flow of our energy to maintain them. It's not a big deal since regeneration is one of our most basic shared traits across the board, but sometimes a piece doesn't turn to ash. A feather or the like with enough lingering energy can be left, and I can eat them. I get a power boost from them. Usually I have to scavenge or beat a being in a fight to get them, but that feather was special. I don't know how she got it, but that was one of my father's, and it was delicious. I haven't felt a rush like that since my awakening. Since I can usually only get things from beings of beaten, the crumbs of power are from beings already weaker than me. But I'm assuming your father is stronger than you?" Nezu asked, cocking his head. Izukale laughed. "Immensely. If I tried I might be able to leave enough energy in a piece to linger, a week maybe. That feather was at least 5 years old, but more likely 10 to 15 years old, and it still had enough power to linger many more years. Can you understand why I hunt other hellspawn and earthbound angels now? They are playing a game with stakes they don't understand, or simply don't care to. I'm a monster, but that's okay. Sometimes it takes a monster to fight back other monsters. I'm sorry to press this issue, but you need to reconsider." All Might burst into the room as Izukale was about to continue. He stopped and stared at the teen in front of him, but their eyes never met. "Looks like our meeting is over. If you have more questions, we can pick it up later. It was nice talking with you, but before I go," Izukale said, his face suddenly in All Might's face with his fist cocked back. His features scrunched up in disgust before he turned on his heel to look at Nezu. Izukale's fist struck the muscle-bound hero's jaw before he could respond, sending him crashing back into the wall. The man probably would have flown for a few more rooms if they hadn't been reinforced. Izukale called for his wings and walked away, but this time 2 sets formed. His primary wings appeared to be replaced by a massive pair of black feathered wings, while a slightly smaller pair of red bat wings served as a supporting role for more stability. When he vanished to spend time alone, Izukale hardly noticed the change and simply took off for wherever he went. After watching the teenage demon fly away, Nezu and Aizawa returned their focus to All Might, only to discover his body shrinking and steaming. They were shocked when Toshinori Yagi's skeletal form took the hero's place moments later. He was unconscious and had some blood seeping from his bruised jaw. Aizawa nodded and said, "Kid's got a good right hook. On the bright side, he's such a moron nobody'll notice if he has brain damage." Nezu simply sipped his tea while considering what he had been told. Very soon, things were going to get interesting. No one saw Izukale for the next 3 days. No conversations, no meals, no pranks. He simply vanished. Even with the geo-tracker Nezu slipped into Izukale's new phone, he was only able to tell his staff that he hadn't left campus when they asked him. At last, Nexu got a message on the morning of the 4th day. "You a demon, you're having problems. Rude, rat god. I'll tell you that I take care of myself. You a demon, humorous. Not what I intended to say. I've been guarding your perimeter, and you owe me a fancy dinner for taking away 50 years worth of curses, hexes, and almost finished spells. Indeed, I would fucking know that magic exists. You a demon, second. I took out the cheap spy gadgets that the Hero Commission attempted to install, that's free because fuck those guys. You a demon, and third, I appreciate your faith in me thus far. I haven't felt safe in a long time, so it's good to feel that way once more. Rat God, you must have something. What is it? You a demon, call a full staff meeting for me. I must examine them for corruption and angelic meddling, but I swear not to kill any of them. Rat God, please visit my office between 5 and noon. I'll take you into the war room. I like you. Keep me from regretting it. With his back to the trunk, Izukale sat back on a tree branch and said, I hope I'm doing the right thing. He held up his arm and gazed into his pentacle, saying, Thanks Mom. I'll try. He closed his eyes and allowed his thoughts to wander while listening to the wind. Izukale entered Nezu's office at precisely 5 minutes before noon, trying to look as human as possible. Izukale gave the stoat a smug smile to ease his discomfort. Nezu jumped up to the edge of his desk and landed on Izukale's shoulder in response, saying, I'll lead and observe from here. For the good of my staff, I hope you understand. With a shrug, Izukale said, You're the principal, Nezu. Nezu tapped Izukale's horns as they began to walk together, and the teenager looked at him and rolled his eyes. Nezu exhaled, Everyone is here, except for one, but he doesn't join the staff officially for another few days. On top of that, any meeting between the two of you is heavily discouraged for his health. After all, the last time you were in the same room you tried to send him flying through multiple walls. Izukale looked at him with astonishment. Don't. I'm not incredibly pleased about it either, but I can't stop him. Better he's here where I can keep an eye on him than somewhere else where I can't. I suppose, but as soon as I am able, Izukale sighed, igniting a black flame in his palm before extinguishing it. Together, they walked into the spacious conference room, where a large, U-shaped table was surrounded by 15 people. They appeared anxious when they saw Izukale, but they became a little more at ease when they saw Nezu on his shoulder. Izukale took a deep breath after closing the door and surveyed the space. I'm not going to split hairs since I respect most of the people in this room, and those I don't, it's because I don't know who you are yet. I'm here to check each of you for corruption or interference from anyone who wishes ill will toward this school or its students. To do that, I need all of you to remove anything that covers your eyes. Is this really necessary? Aizawa asked, glancing at Nezu. Nezu nodded, and everyone followed orders. Izukale grinned and said, Before I start, if anyone has anything they wish to admit to, this is your chance. Since no one spoke, Izukale shrugged and started looking. Izukale had already met Aizawa's eyes, so his turn came quickly. Present Mike, also known as Hisashi Yamada, came after him. Izukale nodded to the man and grinned at what he saw. He blushed and quickly averted his gaze. Nimari Kayama, Midnight, attempted to divert his attention with a seductive wink, but Izukale laughed once he saw what he needed to see. Higari Majima, Power Loader, and his two assistants, Bobcat and Dozer, came next. Bobcat was a man with mustard yellow hair and a plain face who was in his early 20s. In contrast, Dozer was a woman with short, chopped brown hair and a thick, muscular build who was a few years older than Bobcat. Loader-sensei, I know you're worried about your niece, but Hatsune-san will be fine. I promise, Izukale moaned, looking into each of their eyes. The man appeared shocked but nodded appreciatively to the demon teen. Izukale rolled his eyes and turned to face the other two. Both of you can relax. Your kinks are your business, but Dozer-san, nice. Izukale nodded and held up a fist, which caused the powerful woman to flush. As for you, Bobcat, just get some help. Gambling isn't bad in itself, but if you're not careful it'll ruin your life. People care about you, so quit while you're ahead. Izukale spent very little time on each of the following. 13, Anon Kuros, Smintos, Ken Ishiyama, and Lunch Rush. He only mentioned that it was regrettable that 13 chose a blacked-out helmet because she was a pretty woman. Izukale shrugged. Don't hate the messenger, Kuros-san. We both know teasing is the least I could say. You're a great hero. Don't let a few accidents hold you back. Smintos and the teenager simply exchanged polite nods, while the teenager gave Lunch Rush a fist bump. Although she pouted at him. Izukale spent some more time researching Vlad King, Sekijiro-kan, and Hound Dog, Ryo Inui, but ultimately he simply shrugged and said, Kan-sensei, you are a beacon of heroic morals. I know you struggle about whether you did the right thing, but there is no right thing. You do what is best in the moment, and live each day to the best of your ability. Call her after the meeting and tell her you love her. She is your treasure, so never let her forget it. Izukale shook his head at Hound Dog, saying, You might not get the respect you deserve all the time, but you are an essential member of this staff. Just Please stop killing squirrels. We both know it's not malicious, but it's still wrong. Izukale was almost done and went on to snipe Ectoplasm and Rosalind Katsuo, the librarian at UA. Speaking to Ectoplasm, Izukale moaned, "You and Aizawa need to make appointments with Inui-san, because this survives guilt shit needs to end. Seriously, you dedicate your lives to helping people and save a lot of lives. Learn to forgive yourselves already." Izukale laughed at Snipe. Go figure, a gunslinger with a body count. Color me shocked. Just keep those guns trained away from the students, and I don't think we'll have any issues. From one killer to another, I get it. Sometimes it's just better to put down a beast before it can hurt anyone else. Instead of speaking to Katsuo, she's an HSC spy and works directly for the president. Do with that what you may. When Katsuo attempted to strike Izukale with a concealed knife, Izukale moved aside and bound her arms behind her back with a shadow tendril. Tamagiri-san, that was dumb and you know it. I wasn't going to blow your cover completely, but now I will. Haruto Tamagiri here has been reporting potential heroes' names that the commission might be able to exploit for their gain. I'm sorry Nezu, but she's betrayed your trust from day one. Izukale sighed and quickly flicked her into unconsciousness in the shadow's embrace. Nezu said, I will look into this immediately after this meeting. Thank you for your assistance, Morningstar-kun, with a distressed and irate expression. Everyone thought the surprises were over when Izukale grinned and said, anytime. With only recovery girl Chiyo Shuzenji left, Izukale frowned and asked, are we going to have an issue, cousin? Of course not, dear. I never took part in the idiotic war between your side and mine, and that will never change. My loyalty is to Nezu and Yue. Everyone else can bite my old wrinkly ass. The recovery girl rolled her eyes. As you can see, not all of us can remain neutral without facing a cost. As useful as I might be, nobody wants a broken angel. The old nurse flexed her back, and two feathered white wings appeared, but they were twisted, torn, and ravaged. Izukale stepped back and bowed, saying, you revealed yourself to me, so as a token of respect. I will do the same. Izukale's body moved, revealing his entire demonic form, from his clawed fingers and toes to his flowing green hair. The staff, including Recovery Girl, was most taken aback when he displayed his power and majesty by extending all four of his wings. Reaching out with his right hand, Izukale said, I wish us to be allies in protecting this place and its inhabitants. As such, I offer you a deal. Both of us will swear on our lives to not intentionally betray each other for the next 3 years, and I will heal your wings as a sign of good faith. I am sure you no longer need them, given how old the injuries look, but still, I am sure you miss the feeling of the wind. I have your oath, no strings, betrayal, or loopholes. I agree and my wings will be restored. The recovery girl asked Izukale thoughtfully. Izukale replied, they will be as they were before, and as long as they aren't damaged again, they will remain that way until your final moments. You have my oath. Their hands were encircled by a flickering black and gold flame as the two trembled. The recovery girl's eyes widened as Izukale flicked his wrist, revealing an iron pentacle that dangled from it. That is a powerful totem. Whose spirit is it linked to? To shine so brilliantly to my eyes, they must have been uncommonly pure and dazzlingly strong. She said. The old medic was bathed in what appeared to be pale moonlight when Izukale held out his hand and said, my mother. She was all that and more. You know the kinds of deals that are made to create one like us. Well, all that she asked for was a child that she could love and care for. She deserved so much more than a screw-up like me. The world wouldn't have been enough, but thanks to her, I can now continue her work. Izukale shed a single tear. Recovery girl's wings grew full, robust, and healthy again with a snapping tearing sound. Chiyo appeared to be in no pain despite the commotion, and after the procedure was finished, she spread her wings and floated up to Izukale's forehead before planting a tiny, grandmotherly kiss between his horns. After finishing their conversation, they both bowed to one another again before turning to face the others. The two returned to their fully human appearances as everyone stared at them in disbelief. Chiyo laughed. It's like they've never seen magic before. I wonder how they would react if I told them I'm over 400 years old. Izukale laughed. You still look more than spry, cousin. I would have guessed 200, tops. After a moment, Izukale joined her, and since Chiyo and Nezu were now behind him, no one was willing to cause the teenager any trouble. You flatter me, Chiyo laughed. Their spy was placed in a different room until she could be dealt with properly, and the room was now verified to be free of outside influence or interest. As Izukale sat down, he became aware of everyone's tension. Izukale rolled his eyes and said, "You have an amazing staff here, Principal, but they seem a bit stiff. I think I know just the thing to break the ice, a game. What do you say?" Loudly enough for everyone to hear, despite the fact that he was speaking only to Nezu. "I'm intrigued. What do you have in mind?" Nezu smirked and shot the teen a curious glance. Izukale laughed. "You are the most intelligent being on Earth and I'd assume you know your staff quite well. Let's put that to the test. I'll ask a question, and if you guess correctly that person can ask me one question. Regardless of what it is, I will answer, and answer truthfully. Sound like fun? I'm game. What's your first question?" Nezu laughed. He grinned. "Let's begin with something simple. I've explained the difference between being corrupt and being stained by corruption to you in the past, so with that in mind, whom in this room has been stained by corruption the most, excluding myself of course?" As if considering his response, Nezu glanced around the room before shrugging and saying, "It's me." Izukale smiled and said, "In your defense, being treated like a lab test animal will do that." The other teachers briefly displayed fear. Nezu gave a nod. "Since you chose to begin simply, I will do the same. What is the difference between corruption and simply being stained by it?" Izukale gave him a sad look. "Corruption is the inky darkness that warps and twists the innocent and pure into evil, depraved monsters. Murder, torture, negligence, and apathy are some of the worst sources of corruption. As for those stained by corruption, they are often the victims or those forced to powerlessly watch as corruption takes root, the survivors and the truly strong. The problem is, corruption can be a self-spreading disease. A parent abuses their child day after day, so they begin abusing other children. Someone comes home each night and abuses their spouse until finally they snap and murder them. A friend sacrifices their life to save someone, and now the one saved becomes obsessed with revenge. All too often the stained become corrupted simply by not being able to handle the experiences, and it is them that I most pity. Now I ask you, whom in this room is closest to falling to corruption?" As the teachers took in what they were hearing, Nezu sighed and said, "Aizawa." While both Eraser and Ecto-sensei are deeply stained by the events of their past, it is Snipe who is the closest to falling, but in his case. I don't believe it will happen for the same reason I will not fall, the other valid answer by the way. Izukale paused for effect before continuing, "Our hands are stained in blood. Regardless of the reasons, we are murderers, and nothing can change that. On top of that, neither of us has no intention to stop. If there is a place where those who remain pure will gladly burn their tickets long ago." With that said, "Who is the purest of your staff?" Izukale asked with a menacing smile. "Smintos, I believe. He may have faced some hard cases, but I believe he has been the least affected by them." Nezu nodded his head after giving it some serious thought and debating who to pick. Izukale chuckled, "Wrong again. There is one person in this room who is quite literally a pure maiden. I won't out them, but it's hilarious to me that it's the case. Let's see, how about a palate cleanser? Who is the least utilized in their current position?" Nezu laughed. "Midnight. She has a doctorate in childhood psychology, but chooses to teach modern art. In no way am I saying Inui-san is less qualified, but having two fully licensed therapists on staff is certainly a boon, even if she chooses to not make her position known." Izukale replied, "True. After all, most of the others have an optional club or course second and third years can join, like Snipe's marksmanship course, Recovery's first aid, Smintos's architectural engineering, and the list goes on, but only a small few ever even learn that Kayama-sensei isn't just a pretty face." Izukale looked at the woman with dark hair. "What would you like to know?" "I would ask if there is a Ms. Morningstar, but before we address that, I want to know your real name, not your alias as Izukale," said Midnight, blinking before grinning. Izukale's smile faded. "I will answer both in fact since they pair so well. Clearly my name isn't Kurayami Morningstar, although legally it is now. You called Izukale my alias, but it's not. I am Izukale, the demon saint, inside and out. Since the day I was born it is the only name that has been truly mine, though I am warming up to my alias as Kurayami. I am a hellspawn, one born a little over 5 years ago, but before that, I was Izuku Midoriya. Izuku was the quirkless son of Inko Midoriya, head nurse of Musudafu General's neonatal ward. He was abused due to his status for 6 years and used as a test dummy for other students at Jaku Elementary School, an indoctrination site for a Quirkist movement aimed at corrupting the minds of the future to see the world as they do. On the day of my birth, Izuku was suicide-baited by the closest person he had to a best friend before being brutally beaten by him and his friends, nearly killed by a random villain, had his dream crushed by a hero, and came home to find his mother murdered. No wonder you became a hellspawn instead of an earthbound angel like me. I'm so sorry. Given your track record, and the fact most hellspawn take revenge immediately after being born, I have to ask, are any of them still alive? Chio said, putting a hand on Izukale's shoulder. That caused all of them to freeze in their veins, but Izukale chuckled, yes. I never touched the bullies, the villain is still in Tartarus as far as I know, and both heroes are still alive. With a grin on his face, you assumed my mother was killed by a villain. Nope, a hero did it during the apprehension of a villain who tried to hide in our building. Acceptable losses my ass, I've hunted villains big and small for 5 years, and not once has an innocent been harmed directly. He was careless, and it killed the only person that ever believed in Izuku. Both Aizawa and Nezu frowned, and Aizawa insisted, I want names, problem child. They should have to face the consequences for their actions. Izukale's pupils turned into slits as he cackled crazily, oh, they will. I have a code, you see. I never hunt children, they can still learn, and be redeemed if given the chance, but once they become adults that all changes. The hero's eyes looked horrified, and Izukale shook his head until his eyes returned to normal and he groaned, sorry. Sometimes I get overwhelmed, I'm working on my control, but I'm still a hellspawn and a part of me hungered for corruption. Chio intervened at this point, common misconception about angels and demons eat corruption, usually soul and all, and get stronger that way. Angels do the same with purity. I find the practice nauseating, but it's why each is usually seen among certain types of people. Why wouldn't a demon stick close to a corrupt soul and help them grow darker, or an angel support a pious warrior to go into battle for a grand cause? They're fattening up a meal for later. It's not something either side has to do to survive, but it is the quickest way to grow more powerful. It's why I haven't gotten much stronger in over 200 years, I felt like a ghoul serving in trauma centers waiting for heroes and good people to meet their end. It's revolting. Izukale laughed. Not for me, I find slaughtering pedophiles therapeutic. Helps that I know with each one I devour I'm likely saving untold children from a fate potentially worse than death. The truly corrupt tend to gather an annoying amount of protection around themselves, so any amount of power I can gain from those undeserving of it is power I'll gladly accept. Nezu gave a nod, that wouldn't surprise me after seeing you eat those feathers. Izukale, what is he talking about? What feathers? Chio said, her eyes widening and her face turning pale. I would never dream of harming an ally, but yeah. My quirk is called karmic cannibalism, and it lets me eat leftover pieces the same way others like me eat corruption. Frankly, after the last feather I ate, I wouldn't gain anything from you anyway. Full transparency, I got a feather from the kid that thought he could fight me, but I have to thank Nezu for my real prize. My mother managed to get her hands on one of dear old dad's feathers. Although the slit pupils briefly flickered, Izukale remained composed throughout. And your father is? Chio asked, pale. With a wink, Izukale said, a Mestriel. Chio was trembling. A seraph. Well, that explains a lot. This also clarifies how your soul stare works too. Izukale moaned, I should have known. Of course, Ignastus played me. Nothing he ever said was completely true. He even told me not to trust anyone, but I thought I could at least trust my big brother that much. Izukale tilted his head and asked, that's not something all Hellspawn can do. Chio shook her head. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm guessing he's a demon though, Chio said, quirking an eye. Izukale nodded, an eye for it to be precise. He began drawing symbols in the air with a clawed finger, saying, I could summon him if you'd like. I'm more than powerful enough to force him back these days, so it wouldn't be. No, yelled Chio and Nezu, and Izukale dismissed the symbols like smoke with a flick of his wrist. Nezu barked, you said summoning true angels and demons was a big deal. Why would you even offer to do that? Izukale sighed, a few reasons actually. Summoning powerful ones is a big deal, but weaker ones isn't an issue. In this case, Ignastus is an imp compared to me. It's also why I'm not worried about throwing around his name. He can't hurt me, so what do I have to worry about? Chio grumbled, maybe not you, but what about us? I'm not as spry as I used to be, and the others are fully mortal. Izukale waved her away, you're getting worried over nothing. He's probably about as strong as Burnin, and, the educator's side, and Izukale reflected, okay, maybe I'm just desensitized to him, but in my defense, he doesn't usually fight back and just lets me send him back. In a lot of ways, he really is like a big brother to me. Unlike the others, he actually helped me, even if he somehow got something out of it. Chio and Izukale spent the remainder of the meeting discussing the complexities of angels, demons, and the various other beings that existed but were unlikely to cross paths. Izukale once gave Chio a closer look at his feathered wings, and she was surprised to see that, aside from color, they were identical to her own. Izukale hadn't anticipated this at all. Neither had heard of a hellspawn with feathered wings or an angel with black wings. Their wings were red, and although they are still a kind of angel, the closest thing they could think of was a Garuda. In theory, harpies were appropriate, but they were neither demons nor angels, and the feathered species was merely a vicious scavenger. Both ultimately decided to investigate it later, but for the time being, this meeting had to end. It had been a long day for all of the heroes, who needed to get ready for the next term. They parted ways with a wave goodbye, leaving Izukale feeling good. Izukale appeared much more present to the staff over the course of the following 3 days. Occasionally, he would simply show up when they needed something, or they would find him, sleeping, close by while they were training. Even though he always dismissed it as a coincidence, the majority of the staff still grinned. Chio was the only person he acknowledged looking out for because she was assisting him in mastering the use of his mother's pentacle. She offered her knowledge because using it felt awkward and the stamina drain didn't feel as effective as it should have. While he waited for Izukale to visit his office for another conversation, Nezu continued to grin, even after the teenager sat down on the couch. So, what's on your mind today, Principal? Izukale asked. Nezu raised his paws. Firstly, you do remember that you have a room. One with a shower and amenities. Kayama-san has been complaining you keep breaking into her apartment to use hers. Izukale laughed. I like her shampoo. Lavender and elderberry is a bit odd, but it leaves my hair silky. I'm sure you understand. You take great pride in your own coat, which is always so shiny. Nezu nodded. It's the keratin, but don't think you can distract me. Please, use your own shower from now on. Izukale said, rolling his eyes. Yes, Dad. Izukale sat up and appeared interested in what would happen next, while Nezu winced but cleared his throat before saying, on to the real reason you're here, your test results. Nezu placed a disc on his desk and generated a holographic image. I expected you to be at or below your age group in terms of scholastics, but you are actually incredibly well read and studied. One of the tests I had you complete was the entrance exam for the heroic course and another the recommendation exam. You scored the highest of all applicants on both, and when I tried to determine your IQ I found it impossible to determine, like my own. Shrugging, Izukale said, those tests are too formulaic and obvious for accurate results. Replied, agreed, but it tells me you were at least of genius level. In all honesty, the exact placement once one reaches our level is irrelevant and academic. Any small variance can radically alter the order, so I don't consider it worth our attention any longer. Nezu changed the projection to show snippets of Izukale's practical test. On to the practical. You did quite well at the beginning, and it's obvious you eventually pulled back to allow others to get the needed points to pass, but you didn't sit idle. Once you were satisfied with your performance you began aiding others. What was your thought process on that? Izukale reflected on it. Well, once I was sure I had proven my point there weren't a lot of points left to get in my zone. A part of me felt bad for the applicants that actually needed points to pass, so I gave them a bit of help until I got distracted educating a fledgling on the pecking order. Then there was the 0, and I'll admit I was just a bit amped up at that point, so it got used as a bit of stress relief. With a laugh, Nezu switched the projection to a scoreboard and said, in that case, it appears I may owe Aizawa-kun a pay raise. I was sure you would have deduced there was a second way to earn points. Izukale nodded. Honestly, I would have expected you to assign negative points for acts of cowardice or missed chances at heroism instead of giving points for doing what should be expected. Kurayami Morningstar. 140, 140. Shiozaki Ibara. 78, 38, 40. Bakugo Katsuki. 77, 77, 0. Kirishima Eijiro. 74, 39, 35. Ochako Uraraka. 73, 43, 30. Tokiyami Fumikage. 70, 57, 13. Kendo Itsuka. 65, 25, 40. Ida Tenya. 61, 52, 9. 59, 49, 10 Tetsu. Yanagi Reiko. 58, 28, 30. Izukale glanced at it and saw some names he knew. He didn't let Fumi get 6th, and Nezu didn't miss his little smile. Thank you for what you've done, Nezu. I missed being a person and not just a monster. I don't trust anyone, but I think I could grow to trust you. Until then though, keep your eyes sharp, okay? Nezu nodded, but said nothing, so Izukale took off after he congratulated him on passing all of his tests. Izukale got up early on the first day of the new term and observed the influx of both new and returning students from the shadows. Even though he couldn't see any of their eyes from this distance, Izukale could still detect traces of corruption emanating from a few of them. He couldn't say if it was heroic side effects or personal trauma, but seeing how sparse it was calmed him. He sensed him at that moment. As a boy with bicolor hair passed through the gates, his demonic instincts started to salivate and his chest tightened. This boy shocked him by leaving a trail of corruption like an unwrung mop. Izukale knew that whoever he was either over it or on the edge. This degree of corruption didn't just happen. Nezu would need to know as soon as possible, even though a part of him wanted to know everything first. This was being done on purpose by someone. He didn't know why, but something needed to be done quickly. Now deeply worried, Izukale crept into his classroom and quietly slipped to the window he had left unlocked. He simply sat and waited for anyone else to arrive, adopting his disguise from the practical explanation. Regretfully, the boy with blue hair from the pre-practical meeting entered first. The tall boy said, "Well done arriving early. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Tenya Ida, formerly of Somai Academy. I look forward to being classmates," as the two locked eyes and he walked over with a stiff gait and a chop. Izukale's head tilted, but all he saw was sincerity and heroic intent, albeit somewhat stiff. Izukale nodded and said, "Kurayami Morningstar, and I hope you become an amazing hero." Ida appeared perplexed by this, but the previous bi-colored boy entered the room next, so Ida hurried to introduce himself. Shortly thereafter, students began to arrive at a significantly higher rate. Izukale remained silent until he intervened, even though he recognized some and didn't recognize others. Katsuki Bakugo was older, but he was not any more mature, and worse, he was fundamentally corrupt. Izukale was aware that preventing this specific rabid dog from infecting others would be a major part of his difficult year. According to his own rules, he could not be killed unless he had no other option because he was not only not yet an adult but also not salvageable. The blonde bomber stomped over with popping palms as soon as he saw him, perhaps because of the angry and disgusted expression Izukale couldn't help but give. "You trying to start something shit stick?" Katsuki growled. With a look of even greater disgust, Izukale said, "I didn't expect to see you again, Katsuki. Don't act like you know me, extra. Learn your place now, before I have to," the blonde said, grabbing Izukale by the collar, quickly burying his confusion under his anger. Izukale headbutted Katsuki in the nose, sending him reeling back, cutting him off. Izukale straightened his tie and scoffed, "No. You should learn yours. I really hoped what happened to Jaku would have given you the reality check you needed, but it appears I was wrong. This is your only warning, Kachan. Stay out of my face and spend the next 3 years performing a miracle, or come graduation day, you will meet the same fate." Despite the looks he received, Izukale returned to his desk and took out a notebook. "No, you're dead. I saw the evidence. Nobody can lose that much blood and then keep breathing. You're a fucking liar. You're not Deku." Katsuki paled after blinking in impoverished shock until everything finally came together for him. Everyone looked between them in worry and perplexity as a result, and Izukale's laughter only made things worse. The next instant, his right hand turned into a claw, which he used to cut the cord holding his black hair back by running it through it. The black disappeared where his hand touched, dispersing like smoke until only long, curly green hair remained. Izukale stared at Katsuki as he breathed out, "You're not wrong. Izuku Midoriya died that night. I'm what people like you created to take his place. In a way, he took your advice. Die and hope for a quirk in your next life. Well, I'm that next life and I made it my life's work to protect the innocent from scum like you." Aizawa sighed and crept into the room before anyone could say anything more. "Problem child, stop scaring your classmates." Izukale returned to a casual smile and said, "Of course sensei." Grumbled Aizawa, "So here's the briefing. I'm Shota Aizawa, and I'll be your homeroom teacher while you remain in the hero course. I'm not afraid to expel anyone if I believe you lack potential or are just going to become a casualty before your 1-year anniversary of graduation. I am not here to coddle or lie to you. You will become great heroes, or get out of my sight. Am I understood? The students were staring nervously at him, and Aizawa, disappointing. Each of you take a set of PE clothes, and meet me at Training Field Delta. You have 10 minutes, a second longer, and I'll kick you to General Studies. Dismissed. After a moment of staring at the class, Aizawa sighed and left. Glancing around, they saw that Izukale had also vanished, but no one had witnessed his departure. The other students hurried out of the room in a disorganized manner, grabbing a pair of clothes along the way. Most significantly, they failed to notice the figure clinging to the ceiling and observing them. Izukale sighed and shook his head, saying, "This is going to be a long 3 years." After everyone had left, Izukale simply took off his uniform and was only wearing the PE. Before leaping out a window and gliding to Field Delta to wait with Aizawa, he hid his clothes underneath. The classes were talking about their teacher and their missing classmate in the locker rooms. Fumikage did not participate yet, but he listened. So, that Morningstar guy is odd, right? Like, he clearly got a really good score on the practical, but some of the things he said didn't sound heroic. Or was that just me? And what did he mean about a place called Deku? Asked a red-haired boy with sharp teeth, who was actively directing the conversation. Deku Elementary School was where Deku and I used to attend, Katsuki said, slamming his fist into a locker and denting it. Oh, that doesn't sound so bad, the redhead sighed. It burned down years ago. The morning after Deku supposedly died. 36 teachers died in the blaze. They never figured out who did it, or why another dozen teachers were found unconscious outside, but I'll never forget the black and green flames that wouldn't go out or how they shifted to seemingly normal flames once there was no hope of finding anyone alive. Katsuki growled in a whisper, but no one heard him because the room had already gone silent. The story was being repeated to the girls by a purple-haired girl with earphone jacks for her earlobes, to a similar response, until one of them growled. Her hair was covered in green vines. She surveyed as a sign. I recognize that description. That's the same kind of fire I saw the demon saint using before my old home burned down. Whomever this sinner is, this is the final straw. First he appears using the name of the nemesis, and now he has a connection to that monster besmirching the title of saint. I will get my answers and God willing I will make him repent. As they watched their religious classmate, Abara, continue her tirade, a silver-haired girl and a brown-haired girl with a bob exchanged doubtful and anxious glances. Beyond the unpleasant circumstances he rescued them from, neither Ochako nor Reiko could recall their encounters with the demon as pleasant, but they knew that discussing it with her would only exacerbate the situation. Ochako Uraraka, you met him too, didn't you? Ochako said, extending a hand as if observing the similar expression in the other person's eyes. Reiko gave a nod. Reiko Yanagi, and yes, he saved me when I got lost in the forest hunting ghosts. Ochako was beaming. Want to be friends? Maybe we can share stories, because that sounds a lot more fun than what happened to me. Sure, Uraraka. Reiko grinned. That sounds nice. After they had all changed, they headed toward the field and saw Izukale talking to Aizawa in a whisper that ended before any of them, not even Jiro, the girl with the earphone jacks, or Shoji, the big boy with the 6 married arms, could hear. However, as one student approached, they exchanged a strange look. Both are looking at Shoto Todoroki with concern. Before anyone else could say anything, Aizawa threw Katsuki a ball and asked, Bakugo, what was your record on the ball throw? The boy simply ignored them both. Katsuki sneered, 68 meters. Aizawa gave a nod. Get into the circle and do it again, but this time use your quirk. With an evil smile, Katsuki followed instructions. A shout of, die, and a loud explosion sent the ball hurtling off. Izukale simply rolled his eyes in complete disbelief as Katsuki glared at him with pride and a barely concealed threat along the lines of, you're next. They waited for the results. Then he turned it around and saw a distance of 704.3 meters, and he laughed. The Board of Education is behind the times still using pre-quirk standards in an attempt to say we are all created equal. This couldn't be less true. It's time you were free to discover your limits, so we can crush them along with the unfairness of life. I warned you in class that I will not let you stay if you don't show me you deserve to, but know this, if you remain I will push you beyond and you will become the best heroes you can be. Aizawa had them begin with the grip test after removing a few machines from a box. Only Izuka received an undefined result by simply crushing the sensor, while the majority of the students performed well to average, with a few performing exceptionally well, such as Abara using her vines for a score of 300 kilograms, a boy named Sato receiving 400 kilograms, Katsuki receiving 445 kilograms, and Shoji receiving 540 kilograms. Next was seated toe touch, which was much easier for girls like Jiro, the invisible girl, Toru, and the frog girl, Asui, while most of the guys were too stiff and the more mature girls had problems. In the end, they and Izuka lay down without any problems, which caused several people to blush. The sit-up challenge and the three-way battle between Kirishima, Katsuki, and Izuka followed immediately after. Izuka appeared only mildly exhausted, but the other two boys were eventually covered in perspiration. All three of them stumbled a little during the side steps as a result, but they were still able to perform admirably. Problem child, this is your final warning. Take these tests seriously or I'll figure out a way to punish you. Any more holding back or half-assing will result in severe consequences. Aizawa gave Izuka a stern look before they could start the running tests, saving the ball throw for last. The other student started to perspire and wondered just how powerful he was. Izuka nodded but simply rolled his eyes. They were paired off in head-to-head heats for the 50-meter dash. Asui, Ashido, and Aoyama finished in 5.5 seconds, but the majority performed well, averaging about 7 seconds. Ida's engine Quirk got him about 3 seconds, but Bakugo vs. Morningstar, the final heat, garnered the most attention. Bakugo used an explosion to blast off when the indicator lit up, but Izuka didn't appear to move. He was at the other end the next second, and his big black feathered wings were clearly visible. Izuka again won with 1.83 seconds, but Bakugo finished with 4.43 seconds. When it came to the long jump, Izuka didn't waste any time by going first. He flew over the pit and kept going until he sat on the field's border fence, grinning. Aizawa rolled his eyes, and Katsuki's anger only grew. They started the endurance run after nearly everyone else had cleared the sand pit in one way or another, with the exception of the unfit or extremely large students like Kirishima or Sato. However, after about 5 minutes, Izuka saw Yanagi and Uraraka about to fall, so as he flew by, he whispered in Uraraka's ear. Izuka caught both of them by the wrist like a predatory bird after Uraraka touched them both on the following lap. So, these tests are fun, right? He said, holding on to them while they caught their breath. Just let me know when you're ready and I'll let you go to finish your run. With a raised eyebrow, Yanagi said, isn't it already over? We stopped running. He chuckled, nope, you're still moving so the bots haven't registered you as out yet. Technically, I could keep doing this for another 9 minutes, and they wouldn't know the difference. But that's cheating, pouted Uraraka. Izuka sighed, heroes depend on each other every day to protect their territories. I'm just giving you a helping hand. It's perfectly heroic. Isn't that the motto of the Pussycats? Teamwork makes the dream work. The three of them ended up laughing like old friends as Uraraka giggled. Actually, I think it's neon, strikingly cute and cat-like, but close enough. Both girls took a minute to catch their breath before they resumed their running, and Izuka took off. Only Izuka, Bakugo, and Kirishima remained at the end of the 15-minute run, though the latter two were exhausted and drenched in perspiration. About 8 minutes in, Uraraka and Yanagi gave up, and at 13, Ida's engine stalled. That's not to say that the students who gave up early didn't talk to each other. Their pink-skinned classmate smirked as she walked over to join Uraraka and Yanagi in rehydrating, while Toru came from the opposite direction. So, what's your relationship with the Feathered Wonder? And if he's starting a harem, do you think you can put a good word in for me? Mina asked, grinning, as she sat next to them on either side. Morningstar is just a nice guy, I think. I know he was dark and spooky earlier, but I think it might have been an act. He has a very warm aura, and it's comforting. I can't help but feel like we've met before though, maybe in a past life perhaps. As for a harem, Yanagi shrugged, I doubt it. He doesn't seem the type. Uraraka flushed and almost floated away, but Yanagi caught her pant leg. Mina nodded. Toru sighed. He is cute though. Image being carried around like that all the time, and private moonlit flights under the stars, maybe we could convince him to give it a try. Abara said, I wouldn't if I were you, although she was not very far away. Those wings explain it all. He is a servant of darkness in the guise of an angel. The light bringer, Lucifer was said to be the most beautiful of God's angels, but that didn't save him from falling into demonic corruption and becoming the nemesis, Satan. Mark my words, this morning star will bring you nothing but pain as well. See, even Abara admits he's hot. What do you think, Mina? Should we settle this like mature women, or do we have to fight until he picks which of us he's more interested in? Toru laughed as Mina, Uraraka, and Yanagi rolled their eyes. After stroking a fictitious beard, Mina grinned and said, "Dibs." He gasped, "Wait, what? But, Mina, how dare you? You dare invoke the ancient right of dibs. Also, what makes you think you saw him first? Maybe I want to call dibs." Abara rolled her eyes and Toru pouted, but all five of them kept watching the greenette as he laughed and flew around the track. Mina got a Cheshire grin and tooted with a finger, saying, "I met him at the entrance exam, weeks before you did. You can ask Tokiyami for confirmation, and I'm staking my claim. Until he shows an interest in someone else, I'ma try to get a piece of that beefcake." Final test, the ball throw. I expect everyone to give it their full power. Aizawa sighed as she called everyone over to the circle Katsuki had thrown from earlier, giving them a few minutes to rehydrate. Looking intently at Izukale, she said, "And I do mean everyone." The ball throw was enjoyable for most of the class. It was freeing to push their boundaries and demonstrate their true abilities, and some of them put on incredible performances. Abara threw 478 meters using her vines. Momo built a 534-meter cannon. By dispelling the ball's gravity and allowing it to float into space, Uraraka amazed everyone by achieving an infinite result. However, Izukale caught 2 balls when it was his turn. Izukale grinned at Aizawa and said, "You want to see full power? I'll give you an idea. First my abilities, before using a claw to draw a symbol in the air and tossing the first ball through it." Aizawa's eyes widened and his phone beeped after a minute, 2,474 kilometers. Izukale laughed at Aizawa's perplexed expression and said, "I ended up in Qingdao a couple years ago and left a mark there." Preparing to throw his second ball in a pitcher's stance, Izukale declared, "And now, my physical limits." As everyone watched, Izukale became bulkier and completely assumed his demonic form. His muscles tensed even as the ball was enveloped in shadow and then exploded in dark emerald flames, all 4 wings out, his long horns and fangs blazing. It cracked and flew into the distance like a shooting star. Izukale got up and watched it fly before anyone could say anything. "I don't think you're getting that one back either, Sensei," he said with a laugh. Aizawa simply blinked at his phone when it finally registered a distance of 5,357 kilometers. Izukale sighed in disappointment and said, "I was aiming for Moscow, but I guess Singapore will work for now. Maybe I'll be able to hit San Francisco in a few years. That would be cool." As he glided down, he glanced down at the class to see how they were responding, and he was shocked to see how few of them were staring at him with hatred or fear. However, it wasn't Katsuki who appeared angry and prepared to attack him. "How dare you come here and taint this place with your demonic corruption?" Abara began to yell, turning to face Aizawa. Her hair began to come to life around her as she pointed. "Aizawa-sensei, I demand you help capture that vile villain immediately. We must do so now before he escapes or further besmirches this place with his presence." With the exception of Izukale, everyone was taken aback when Aizawa said bluntly, "I will not." Aizawa exhaled. "The principal has made him a ward of the school. Kuroyami Morningstar, also known as Izukale the Demon Saint, is a student of UA just like the rest of you, and as long as he remains on campus he has sanctuary. You cannot be serious. He is a murderer, a villain. This is completely unacceptable." Ida sputtered, blinking. "He is not a villain. When the clan came to kill my little sister and me, Izukale saved us. He wasn't any older than us, but without a second thought, he did what he had to do to keep us safe. He was my hero that day, and I know there are others all over Japan that would say the same," Fumikage abruptly said, moving between Izukale and the other students. Yanagi quickly moved to stand next to him and glared at the other students, saying, "I got lost in the mountains and he saved my life. He made sure I made it home and my parents wouldn't have to bury another daughter." Another second passed, and Asui and Shoji joined them. They didn't say anything, but everyone could tell they understood by the nod they gave Fumikage. Mina glanced at Toru after hearing Fumikage's explanation, and they joined Uraraka in the expanding group. Some others appeared uncertain, but instead of joining either side, they just moved aside. Bakugo, Abara, Ida, Kirishima, although his gaze stayed on the ground. Momo and Todoroki stood motionless and in stark opposition. It was nice meeting most of you. Izuku sighed and said, it seems my presence will only cause more issues, so I'll leave. He left with a strong wing flap, but Fumikage felt something slide into his pocket without him noticing. The tension persisted even after he left. After the lines were drawn, they didn't appear to be going away anytime soon. Aizawa sighed in frustration as she announced the test results, which left some people feeling less than thrilled. 1. Morningstar Kurayami. 2. Yaoyorozu Momo. 3. Todoroki Shoto. 4. Shiozaki Ibara. 5. Bakugo Katsuki. 6. Tokiyami Fumikage. 7. Tenya Ida. 8. Meso Shoji. 9. Ojiro Mashiro. 10. Hiroshima Eijiro. 11. Ashido Mina. 12. Ochako Uraraka. 13. Yanagi Reiko. 14. Kaminari Denki. 15. Asui Suyu. 16. Rikido Sato. 17. Kota Koji. 18. Yuga Aoyama. 19. Jiro Kyoka. 20. Hagakure Toru. Following the announcement of the results, Aizawa let the remaining students change and become acquainted with the campus. He gave them permission to set up their dorm rooms as well, but he issued a warning that he would not tolerate any justifications for tardiness beginning the following day. Fumikage went to retrieve the remainder of his belongings from the classroom rather than heading to the locker room. In the meantime, Jiro was left in the middle, not knowing what to believe, while the girls' locker room was icy with tense silence as most of them gazed at Ibara and Momo with hostility. To the annoyance of Katsuki and Ida, the majority of the boys in the locker room were divided and muttering their perplexity about the circumstances. For two quite different reasons, neither could understand why anyone would be perplexed about the issue. Izuku was clearly a villain to Ida, but Katsuki was even more incensed than he had anticipated when he growled, "How dare that fake steal Deku's face and lie about being connected to him? Deku is dead and buried like Auntie." Katsuki's eyes were resolute as he said, "I'll destroy him and make him admit the truth. Whoever he really is, he's probably the one who actually killed Deku, that's how he knows so much about me." "Yeah, that must be the situation." Katsuki slammed his locker and turned to leave. He needed to do a lot of training. After everyone had changed, they split up to complete their individual tasks or just take some time to reflect or explore. Ibara talked to a few upperclassmen she encountered on campus before heading to a quiet section of the campus where a few more religious graduates had erected a little shrine. It served more as an authorized location for prayer or special rites that various groups felt compelled to observe while there rather than being primarily dedicated to any one religion. To be honest, Ibara thought the place was lovely. A unique collection of flowers, some of which had cross-pollinated over time, surrounded the central small shrine with flowers from all over the world in colors and shades that could not be found anywhere else. The girl was particularly delighted to see Izuku off to one side, doing something she couldn't see, but she also noticed that it was tidy, calm, and well-maintained. Ibara walked as stealthily as she could, hearing Izuku chatting to someone she couldn't see as he carved symbols into a stone he was holding in his lap with a claw. "I know I shouldn't let it get to me, but I'm still surprised that so many people here accept me. I never intended that. I thought I'd live and die alone. That someday someone would destroy me and that would be it. My long bloody battle to protect others brought to an end, only remembered as a monster, but that doesn't look like the case and it scares me. Life was easier when I didn't need to worry about staying in one place, but I am needed here. I have to protect these people from those deluded fools. I wish I could just talk things out, but after Terranile, I just can't take that chance. I'm sorry Mom, but I promise I won't let you down. I couldn't protect you, but I will protect them, even if they hate me for it." Ibara grimaced and said, "You don't belong here, Befouler. This is a holy place." Izuku blushed a bit and turned away. "All are welcome in the house of God, are they not? Are you implying that your faith is somehow more valid than my own without even knowing to whom I pray? This is not our first time meeting Shiozaki-san, but I am glad to see you unharmed. Does this mean Peter is doing well as well?" Ibara wailed, "Do not twist the words of the Lord, demon, and I care not to what dark master you send your pleas. You do not belong here, and do not speak of my brother. I don't know what foul intentions you had for him, but they clearly failed. Peter is a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day, and after our church burned down he has only devoted himself even more to acts of generosity and care." To Ibara's astonishment, Izuku grinned happily and said, that is good to hear. I was worried that after the fire he may pull away or shrink away from strangers, but this is great news. I know the road he will walk is difficult, but knowing he has you and is giving his all to be a hero puts my mind at ease. Izukale set his stone among a group of people and bowed his head for a moment before getting up and saying, as much as I would like to continue talking with one as strong and beautiful as yourself, I cannot. I have other matters to address and apologies to give. Please take your time enjoying this place, and if I may be so bold, check out the lavender and roses in the back. I find them calming and nearly as appealing as your smile. Have a blessed day. Following a bow, Izukale spread his wings once more and took off, but this time he was much more cautious, as if he didn't want to disturb the shrine or the flowers surrounding it. Abara was shocked to discover headstones when he went to examine the stone and the others nearby after he had completely disappeared from view. The one he recently finished was devoted to Inko Midoriya, and it was adorned with tiny symbols of rest and protection. Other mass stones surrounded it, each bearing dozens of names and dates that suggested they had all passed away young. Abara made sure to snap a photo so she could investigate the names, but she felt unclean about it, as if she were desecrating something holy. Abara went to take another look at the flowers on a whim and ended up where Izukale had pointed. The sight of the roses, lavender, and honeysuckle calmed her, and his words replayed in her mind. Her cheeks were burning with shame because that demon had compared this location to her smile. Abara gave a headshake. She was acting foolishly. She was loyal to her lord despite being an orphan. She refused to be misled by the words of a cute demon. In another scene, Fumikage and Yudzuka were moving through one of the fictitious cities until they arrived at a specific address. It was strange and familiar at the same time, like going to a friend's house, but in a totally made-up setting. Following the instructions, Fumikage rang the doorbell, and it did work, leaving both birds wondering why. Well, a lot of whys. After a minute, Izukale approached the door and opened it for them. Fumikage followed Izukale inside, taking off his shoes out of habit and settling into a chair that was offered. After a brief absence, Izukale came back carrying tea. I don't know why Nezu insists on making these cities so realistic, but I'm not complaining. Just a heads up by the way. This place is covered in cameras, so don't go insulting the rat or use the shower. I'm pretty sure nobody is watching and any recordings get whipped after a few days, but, yeah, just don't do anything you'd regret. Screamed Fumikage, and you choose to stay here. How dare he make you live like a criminal and watched all the time? Izukale sighed. Firstly, I am a criminal. Technically I qualify as a serial killer to be honest, but that's not the point. Also, I could stay in the room Nezu provided, but if I stay in one place too long I get nervous. I have a bunch of places like this in each of the mock cities so I can always be on the move. The cameras don't bother me, and I know Nezu isn't the type to watch unless I make him. Izukale paused for a moment and let out, that's not why I invited you here though. I want to apologize. Yudzuka tilted her head, extended a clawed hand, and said, Ni-san, you have nothing to apologize for. If it's about earlier, we were happy to, in response to Fumikage's extreme confusion. Please, stop, Izukale cried. You have no idea what I did to you too. I've cursed you and you should hate me. Most of all you'd. I stole your autonomy. You'll never be able to have your own life, grow up, have a family of your own, I'm so sorry. Yudzuka leaned down and nuzzled Izukale's head. I'm not. I was never going to get any of those things anyway. At least this way I can protect Fumi, and who said I can't do any of those other things? I'm a big bird, and my family will be Fumi's. You saved us, and I love you for it, Izu-ni. I could never hate you because you're my hero. Yudzuka reared back at the smell of blood as Izukale began to cry. I'm no hero, and if you fail to become one, Izukale said, his shoulders hunched. Fumikage said bluntly, we'll die, which caused Izukale to freeze. Fumikage sighed. We had a lot of time to research about you and the deal. I'll admit I was scared at first, but, you believe in us, don't you? Why else would you do it? Izukale murmured, I do, but back then, I didn't know what I was doing. You were my first deal, and I thought I was doing good. Izukale's hand was held by Fumikage. You did. We know the risks, and if we fail, we won't hold it against you. You gave us an opportunity to make peace with death and that's something not many can say. Don't get me wrong, we have no intention of letting that happen, but we accept it if it does. You are our master, our friend, and we intend to stand with you as long as we can. What do you say? Feel like letting us join your flock? Nezu grinned proudly in his office as Izukale wrapped them in his wings and grinned, saying, "It's a deal, little brother." Izukale spent the next few hours talking and sharing stories with his guests about his accomplishments since they first met.
So this was it for the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.